All right, good evening. I'd like to go ahead and call this regular Destin City Council meeting for June 15, 2015 to order. If you please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this beautiful city and this beautiful state and country that we live in. We ask that the things we do tonight be fair and just for all parties. We also ask you to watch over every one of us here tonight, get us safely to our families, and watch us each and every day. Please watch over our troops here and abroad, for they're what keep this city, this state, this country safe. We ask this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. A couple housekeeping things real quickly. Again, after item number 3, you'll see public opportunity to speak on council propositions. That's for items 4 through 18. If there's something you want to speak for or against, that's your moment to come forward and speak. Otherwise, you will definitely get a chance to speak at the end of the evening. So just didn't want you to think your voice would not be heard. So, all right, first up, approval of minutes. Item number 1, request approval of minutes, June 1st, 2015, regular city council meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Witt is the first. Mr. Trammell is the second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Mr. Foreman? And Mr. Dixon. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, item number 2, request approval of minutes of the June 1st, 2015 executive session. Council direction discussion.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Witt is the first. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Trammell. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let's call the vote.
Hey, I'm holding it down. It won't return.
Hit it again.
Got a bad finger.
The operator.
Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay. Item number 3, request approval of minutes of May 11th, 2015 special council workshop. Council discussion, direction, motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Witt is the first. Ms. Trammell is the second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Outstanding. There is no public hearings tonight. Again, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak for or against items number 4 through 18? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda item number 4, request approval to construct a single-family dock and boat lift.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Marler has a
second.
Mr. Wood has a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passed unanimous, 7-0. Okay, next up, item number 5, RFP, proposals for civil engineering design and construction services for the City of Destin National Fish and Wildlife Foundation drainage improvements. Mr. Costello?
Thank you. What you're going to hear tonight is a presentation from the 3 firms who responded to the request for proposals for the civil engineering, design and construction services that would do the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation drainage improvements. I think we're going to plan to do them alphabetical order. Each of the firms will have up to 15 minutes, and then you can have time for your question and answer. I think we've given you a proposed scoring sheet for all of them. Out of courtesy, the firms that are not presenting, they will go with Mr. Woolard here, and we'll actually put you in the kitchen. We got a TV in there, so okay. All right, thank you guys. I think we have up Atkins, North America Inc.
Yep, Atkins will be first, then Preble Rish, then Volkert. Mr. Bailey, are you going to do the 15-minute clock for us? Or can you? Great.
Is this on now?
Yeah, you can just wait just 1 second,
Okay.
Mr. Helms. Okay, City Council, y'all ready for the first presenter? Okay, Mr. Helms, please, sir.
Mayor Ponder, council members, I'm Jeff Helms. I'm Vice President of Atkins. In this particular project, I will serve as the principal in charge and the project manager because I've served in that role on another NIFWIF stormwater project, the first of its kind in the state of Florida. Now, as far as this particular project, the in-house services, we can provide all of the services that y'all have asked for with the exception of geotechnical engineering. And we usually have a special firm that specializes in the geotechnical part. That'll be Tierra as far as that. So, but all the rest of them, we have that capability in-house. Now, we have more resources, and I've explained that to you before, than any other firm in Northwest Florida. Tremendous resume on stormwater. I have over 28 years of project management and program management experience when it comes to stormwater and other types of civil engineering type project, and more importantly on this project, public involvement. Jason Ripley in the Florida State shirt. I'm a Gator. He's FSU. We do get along. We do work as a team in spite of his thing, but he has tremendous experience with complex engineering and stormwater design. Now, I ask you to call for our performance record these engineers. We're very blessed to work for a variety of counties and cities, and we encourage you to call these folks. Michael Shinkman with DEP, non-point source manager, is very important. He's the guy that validates that you're meeting your intent of the NIFWIF project on this project. Now, this was an email he sent to us just earlier in the year. After going through the project myself, I passed it on to Lee Marchman, the state stormwater engineer, and he provided the following response. It's a nice job modeling. Good work. And this was Jason Ripley, our stormwater engineer, and we've got others. And I showed this to you last year from our Leon County. And the bottom line, and you progress down, in summary, Atkins is responsive, creative in solution, and cost efficient in delivering the project. And so we've got a good reputation, not only from Pensacola all the way to Tallahassee when it comes to stormwater. Now, I like having time and budget because that's what it's all about. There's no additional budget for this. The NIFWIF grant is what you have. So anything beyond this comes out of your general fund. We really don't want that. This is just a sampling of projects. It demonstrates our performance. The only time we ever get into trouble is when I have young engineers and I get on them when they put budgets in to match programs or budgets, when they put cost estimates to match the budget of the respective municipality. In other words, I always tell them, you design and you put cost estimates based on what's been designed, and then you work with the client backwards. That's the only time we ever get into trouble, is when our young engineers don't do that. Federal grant construction assistance, we do a ton of this type of work. We have an office in Freeport. We're doing the US 331 CEI work. We handle federal grants, and this is a sampling. We have folks in Okaloosa County that live in Okaloosa County that do only CEI work basically in Okaloosa County, so we're well versed in the federal grant process, which is important on this project. We're within the last 3 years, we're your consultant for the Destin Crosstown Connector, and I think that's important because one of the projects is directly intertwined with this, the Destin project. Relationships, critical. Last Wednesday, I was meeting with Kelly Samick, Phil Corum. Kelly Samick is the NIFWIF coordinator for the state of Florida. It's the second meeting in the last month that I've had with her and Phil Corum with DEP. I'm in many meetings with Restore and all the different folks from day one of the oil spill. I've been involved in meetings, heavily involved in planning and with EPA, and there's a lot of other things I could go into for you on the Restore elements. Similar work, this is just a sampling of types of projects, and I just did it by grant. There's various local option utility, NIFWIF. As I said earlier, we did the first NIFWIF stormwater project in the state of Florida, and it's out for bid. I'll go over that right here. We developed the grant application for the city of Pensacola, and we designed and prepared the construction plans. We went through the process. We understand exactly what their expectation. The project bids next week. This is just a sampling of comment forms. There's certain things NIFWIF expects, and you let them know They have a standard statement, and we let them know whenever I do a public meeting or public presentation, I let them know that it's funded by NIFWIF, and there's certain caveats that they require, and we've been there, done that. Your project has design features, exfiltration, swales, hydrodynamic separators. Just in the last year, we designed 6 hydrodynamic separators on various projects, including NIFWIF project. Operation and maintenance, 25-year service life, maintenance requirements, and we will put together an operation and maintenance plan as part of this project, similar to what we did on the other NIFWIF project. NIFWIF. This is their expectation. You see all the numbers, the BOD, the load reduction. This is what they expect from the city of Destin, those numbers. And our experience, we can help you, even if you tweak the plans. I know that the plans are back to your Stormwater Master Plan in 2004. Things may have changed, construction stuff, but we'll make sure we meet these goals. But that is the goals. They also expect to keep controversy to a minimum. We went through some of that in Pensacola over a basketball court in an African-American neighborhood, and we can avoid that. I'm gonna make some suggestions. Progress reports, key meetings, and major issues, just make them aware, and they're very comfortable, they're easygoing to work with. Keys to success, work with the property owners. You see the top 2 photos. On the left, there's lots of landscaping in the right-of-way. The last thing we want is the entire Indian Bayou neighborhood and some of the other neighbors down here, complaining. And they take pride. When they see a tree in your right-of-way, they think it's their tree. So let's do a concept plan that makes life easy, meets those reduction requirements without filling this room full of folks. Let's avoid that. And the initial concept plan is extremely critical. And meeting with the public, as in Pensacola, is more important to NIFWIF than accelerating the schedule and trying to finish it early. I'd rather meet with a few more folks out in the field and get it just right. Little things like matching the grass, centipede, St. Augustine, Tiffway, Bermuda, matching it, little things like that, and working with them. Don't redo and do and redo. I hate that. This is Kelly Street. This is some of the plans that are proposed for this project, and it impacts that area. Let's try not to tear up. I mean, the taxpayers have already paid for this. Let's incorporate it, make it nice, and let's make it part of it. Another area is Sandalwood through the Destin Crosstown Connector area. Well, we have, and you haven't seen this, the first time I'm showing that this is one of 3 stormwater alternatives. Let's fit the 2 together. Let's combine some of that, and maybe we can streamline the taxpayer dollars and do more in other areas. Just a thought. Extensive stormwater design resume, and I know I'll rush this. I could go into a lot more of our stormwater modeling capabilities after the storms, April 2014. We've done a ton in Walton County and Pensacola. Great relationships. Kelly Samick, Phil Corman, and Michael Shinkman, and Lee Marshman, the key folks that will be approving the documents and improving your goals and objectives at the end of the day. And I think that's important. And literally, we've already designed the first NIFWIF project in the state, so we've already been through the growing pains that the city of Pensacola had in trying to rush the project and do certain things, so we understand what it takes to make a successful NIFWIF project. With that, I'll hush and open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Helms. Is there anyone on council that has a question? Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. You mentioned briefly that you all have a 25-year effective service.
Well, that's the minimal expectation that the service life for the products, like the hydrodynamic separator, the swell, and the trench. That's the expectation for the water management district and the city of Destin, quite frankly. You want it to last 25 years. Hopefully it'll last a lot longer.
Now, is that true for any outfalls or drainage systems that are put
absolutely.
in?
Anything that you have, you're designing for that thing to last. I mean, really, you would like for it to last 40 and 50 years. It needs to last well over a generation or a couple of generations.
Yes, we'd like that. Very
you don't
much.
need to be dealing with it,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that goes into the material. That's where that gets into an improved materials, how long it will last, concrete versus other, and price. So those are the things we'll work with your city engineer on to make sure we meet that.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what you typically use when you're treating the stormwater, the treatments that you use?
Well, it depends. We've got 3 different methods. We have swales and we have the hydrodynamic separator, which is a artificial approach, and it's a man-made product where you put the water in, it circles, cycles, and it separates the oils, the greases, and what have you, and discharges the clean water. And what you do is you have a pump, a vacuum pump, and it sucks up the grit, the dirt, the oils, and the greases out of that. And then you also have the exfiltration pipes where the water goes into the pipes and it exfiltrates out and it treats through the natural ground. So that's what we're talking about. And the other option is just the dry ponds. And there's some areas out there to avoid Kelly Street that near there where we think we can use some of the right-of-way you have to put some dry swales, maybe even add a little bit of landscaping, enhance it, but still do the treatment and keep it dry. We don't want it wet. You know, you get mosquitoes and stuff.
Absolutely.
And normally when I put wet ponds, I like to put fountains and things like that, make it amenity to create value. But in these particular cases, it perks so well. Let's do some landscaping, make it look nice, and keep it a dry pond, shallow.
Sure. Can you tell me a little bit about any quality checks that you have, control checks during the process?
Absolutely. We go through a rigid quality control plan. It starts at 30, 60, 90. We have to build in. When we submit, if you select us, and the very first thing we'll do is we'll submit our quality control plan to the city engineer and then what we do is we have our checks and balances as we go through the project. And the key is having experienced folks that have been there and done that, and they review it and they can see, oh, here's an issue. One of the big issues is utilities.
Sure.
At the concept level, y'all have dealt with it for years. Anytime you're digging in the ground, whether it's just a shallow swale or a hydrodynamic separator or whatever, you get them on board at the concept. Before the 30%, you have a concept, you get them in the room, and you say, listen, this is what we've got. How can we miss these utilities? And you save because the taxpayers paying for relocations, they also pay for the stormwater work. So let's save the taxpayers as much money as we can and save grief on that. But we have a rigid QC process as we go through.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Foreman?
What I'm concerned with, and you've dealt with it somewhat, is not just putting in the drainage, but where you drain it to.
Yes.
And the fact is that we seem to go through periods where we have excessive amounts of rain, particularly a couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
And people were draining into the sewage system, and it almost caused an overflow of the sewage plant over here with an environmental impact and all like that. And so it's the whole picture that I'm concerned about. It's that it's figured for periods of time when you have an excessive amount of water to drain. And how you do that, I don't have a clue. But that's, what we're interested in because it has to fit.
Well, we can walk you through that when we do it. There's some things that we saw in the field, an easement here, or where we could cut some costs of pipe and get it directly to the bayou and get the pipes maybe sized a little bit larger. There's innovative things you can do. You just got to be cost benefit, and you got to work closely with the city engineer and say, hey, here are the cost benefit, here are the alternates. Y'all make the decisions on kind of where you want to head, and we can give you the numbers on the modeling to let you know what it will carry, what it will not at certain locations within the run of pipe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question for our city manager first. Is maintenance of traffic an issue during this when you're working on swales?
Absolutely. Anytime you're working in the, in the right of way.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so who's doing your deconfliction on maintenance of traffic?
We've got numerous folks that are certified. I'm certified to do maintenance of
I
traffic.
know you are, so. Okay.
And all, but in the maintenance of traffic is something that we'll work with your city engineer too, and what time of the year you want to do it, certain at certain times. Biggest thing in residential areas is if you're out there at 6 a.m. and then you're waking folks up. I've got a house going in right next to us right now, and they're beating at 6:15. I don't care, but my wife is shooting me. But setting the work times and the inconvenience, it's just working with the public on that. I mean, most of the work's gonna be done on the other area, but they're gonna be blocking. We don't want them blocking traffic. We gotta put where they can work from. And the neighbors are usually pretty good. And they'll let you know if things doesn't look quite right. if you talk to them. But we'll put a maintenance of traffic plan together that we think you'll feel comfortable with. We do this all the time.
Right. I don't know if this is a player in this, but do you have any LEED certified engineers?
We have,
And is
yeah, we
LEED
have-
certification
we have
a big
LEED
deal in
certified.
stormwater?
We have LEED certified folks. On this, we do a lot of what you're talking about is best management practice type, with the hydrodynamic separators, the exfiltration pipes. On this project, I see it being landscaping. It's little things like landscaping to make the public feel a little bit better and not destroying what they built over 10 years in a subdivision. Not taking this tree out versus doing something else. Those are the things that I see being really critical as opposed to, LEED is important and it's great and it's a great buzzword, but when it comes down to exactly what Mr. Foreman said, it's the engineering, you gotta get the water to a certain location and do it and meet certain storm events and meet the criteria of the NIFWIF grant. LEED is great, but we gotta make sure we meet the numbers of the nutrient reduction loadings.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Marler?
Thank you. Since you mentioned Kelly Street, and I live on Kelly Street, actually, I'm going to talk about both sections of Kelly Street. The section that I live on, which has just been completed, where they've already put some drains and drainage in there and done some of the stuff there. Have you looked at that area there?
I've looked at the area. I don't have the inverts on any of the pipes yet on that, so we're interested. That's one of the areas I'm very interested in looking at to make sure we match up and we do some innovative things so we don't tear things out.
Well, you were talking about, because they channel it, like there's 2 houses down from me is a spot where we have a holding pond.
Right.
And then they channeled some of the other to what we call Beaver Lake, which is over by the ballpark. The other question I had was for the other section of Kelly, those deep swales that we have over there. To me, I don't like them because they're too close to the school. That's a danger for a child to go down in there, and those culverts, I don't like them. That's one thing I'd like to see looked at is more like my side of Kelly, less like the other side, because those swells are way too deep.
Yeah, you flatten the ditch. You flatten the ditch out, and it's more livable. And then you put the perforated pipe underground to transmit the water and do the treatment of the water. And it's shallower, and you may be able to do some light landscaping around those areas. But I understand what you're saying. And it gets too deep.
No, that side's way too deep for me, as far as for the small children that we have coming into the school. So
I understand what you're saying. It's not a problem to fix on that. We just need to make sure, in fact, we'll look into that real closely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. The last thing I want to see done is Kelly Street swells tore up and redone. We just got through redoing that. I'd rather.
No do and redo.
No, you're talking about fixing to make some folks mad and start tearing up swells and tearing out the pipe that was just put on the other end of Kelly Street. And that's why I was going to ask, are you talking about doing something all down Kelly Street, or we just use that as an example, or what?
What we would do, my first choice is to tie into what's there. It's beautiful. It looks great. It's just settling. The sod hadn't been down long. With the nice sidewalk, it's great. We don't want to go in and tear all that out, but I do need to look at the inverts of the pipes and that were put under and see how we can tie into that, and then look at if we can't tie into that, look at options that we don't tear out the street. Right. But that's going to be our last alternative. I don't want to tear out anything the taxpayers have already built. That drives me insane.
That's the last thing I want to see.
Yeah, I agree.
That is we're talking about tearing up people's yards and right-of-ways and all that, which we're already currently doing with these 8-foot sidewalks. Are we going to try to coordinate in getting that? If they go in and take out the right-of-way and tear up people's yards, are we going to put in those sidewalks at that time, or so we don't have to come back later and tear them up again?
This is predominantly the retrofit of the stormwater system. We don't anticipate just replacing, any sidewalks or things that we have to replace. So that's not any new 8-foot pathways and all that.
Okay.
It's a much more expensive proposition than the funding we've got.
Right. But that's usually a question we get asked when we go to, when we're meeting, are you going to put the sidewalk in at the same time? That's a good question.
Yeah, because I hate seeing stuff being done
right
you know, you come in and then 6 months later, we come and tear it all back out and put a sidewalk in and.
And the same thing, I was talking about the Destin Crosstown Connector, that's the last thing we need to do. I mean, the FWIP project will probably be funded, obviously funded first, it's funded, you got money, but let's try to match them. So you're not, the taxpayers doesn't see us out here 2 and 3 times.
Oh, yeah, I agree, 100%. That's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Trammell?
I just wanted to say where these gentlemen are gonna be working, or whoever the firm is that we select is gonna be working, is gonna be the houses that were flooded, and they don't care if you're digging up there right away to put in drainage. They really are glad to have that
We're
happen.
happy to get fixes.
Primarily, we're not talking about those who didn't have a drainage problem. We're talking about those who did have a drainage problem, and
Right.
you know, so I think that's a much-needed service that we're gonna be looking at.
Good
Thanks.
deal. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Can you see none? Mr. Helms, team, thank y'all very much.
Appreciate your time.
I appreciate it as
Thank you
well.
very much.
Thank you so much. Give y'all time to vacate. Hey, Mr. Willer, are you bringing in the, Hank, are you bringing in the second group? Can you give me about just 30 seconds before you do that? I want council to have a chance to go ahead and, while it's fresh, go ahead and score. If you've not been doing it already, just give you about 30 seconds to kind of be looking at that. Ms. Ramswell, question?
Yeah, it's actually probably more for Greg or for staff. When we're talking about, for example, Indian Bayou and the stormwater improvements and such, I think with Councilwoman Trammell's thoughts about we're not going to be doing other areas, it's just primarily the areas that have been impacted. So with Indian Bayou as the example, would we be installing swales, let's say down Country Club, before we get, so those homeowners would be affected?
Yes, they would be. So it's a combination of areas impacted, and again, this focuses more on water quality than quantity. But you're gonna solve quantity issues, but it is a quality, making sure the water that's ending up in our harbors and our bays is cleaner.
As clean as
Treated.
possible.
That's the intent.
Okay, I just wanted to wrap my head around the fact whether it's just going to be isolated areas or if it'll be a whole sort of system, which is what I had in my head.
Yeah, as Mr. Helms said, this is a continuation of the 2004 master plan, the projects that we weren't able to get to, and then we applied for the grant. It was more of an emphasis on water quality than it was quantity. It will address quantity, but it will focus on making sure that water that hits the bay, hits the harbor, hits the bayous is cleaner.
Okay, great. And I'm sorry, I have one more. With Mr. Campbell, obviously our in-house sort of resident expert on this, are there questions that you have that you'd like us to ask, or are you comfortable? Will there be an opportunity for him to ask anything?
So far,
If you want to.
I think all the questions are appropriate.
Okay.
There's nothing in particular that I would recommend you ask, but so far I think that all the questions have been germane and relevant.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I just wanted to, maybe I'm piggybacking off the comment of swales here in Indian Bayou. I drove through there with one of our staff members here a couple of days ago, and I was surprised at how few to no swales are in that neighborhood. Yeah, I know some of those houses were built before DEP or whoever demanded swales, some before the city was a city. The county may not have demanded swales at that time. I have a little bit of concern that we're going to dig the swales up and some folks will come back and fill them in. And if they do, we're going to hammer the out of them.
There will be
We're gonna pay all this
violations.
money for it. So, all right, I'm done.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Willard, tell them, come on in. Preble Rish.
No relation.
Oh,
There's a B missing, right?
Is it E?
B.
B? Yep. It's Rish, not Ramswell. Director, how you, sir? Good, good. You heard the discussion. You got 15 minutes to do a presentation, then there'll be Q&A at the end, and that can go on to whenever council, that can go beyond the 15-minute mark to the point council's done with questions. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Bailey, you ready on timing? Okay, you can go and start, Mr. Director.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come in here today to talk to you about the Nifwith Drainage Improvements Project here for the City of Destin. Really been looking forward to an opportunity to speak with you about this project because it's one that affects all of us, our neighbors and friends. I mean, all of us have had plenty of the unfortunate opportunities to help them haul flooded stuff out of their house and cut sheetrock that's been damaged and everything. And so this is one of those opportunities that where we get a chance to do what it is we do and help all of our friends and family and neighbors and everything. So thank you guys for that. First here, I'll talk real briefly about the scope of the work. There's 6 projects that were picked out from the Stormwater Master Plan that are going to be funded by this Nifwith grant. And the 6 here listed are the Indian Bayou Subdivision, Sandalwood Drive, Spring Lakes and Whippoorwill Avenue, the Juanita Drive and Snapper Avenue, and Maltezo Street and Calhoun Avenue. And one of the things we did whenever we were looking at this group of projects is that we were identifying that, the bulk of each one of these projects, the funding that's been designated in the original cost estimates for the Stormwater Master Plan are mainly for the swales. And that's what the bulk of each one of those tasks for. But in like Spring Lake and Whippoorwill Avenue, for example, had $305,000 for swales. But one of the things that it seemed to not be addressed in there, and one of the things we will make sure to address, is the utility relocations, because whenever you're putting in those swales, you've obviously going to have issues where you got to maintain cover on all the water connections and the sewer tap connections and stuff that are in there. So that's one of the things we make sure and take effort to address in that. But each one of those projects, though, I'll go through here briefly and show. We did a study in 2011, actually, that was for this area in Indian Bayou Country Club. It's where and we went out and surveyed some of these locations, identified some of these creeks and ditches and the pipes out there. These photographs you look at here, some of them we took during some of these storm events, and you can see kind of it's the same street, the before and after, where it's identifying your problem, where you've got standing water up to the headlights on the cars that are coming through there on these on this subdivision streets. Next project, Sandalwood Drive, a similar situation here, where you've got the folks in these houses have water all the way lapping up to their front doors, and and this map that you see here behind the background showing kind of the exfiltration and piping network that would be proposed to be put in there to get that out of that network and into the existing system. The next site here is the Spring Lake and Whippoorwill Avenue, and that's the subdivision that you have there that is to the east of the duck pond, if you will. And then also the next one, the Juanita Drive and Snapper Avenue, is the area that's along Kelly. They're the area that's in front of the school, and then also down Snapper Avenue and some of those ditches that are in Benning, where some of the folks there had some pretty excessive flooding there in their front yards as well. And those are both similar to where the proposed is a series of ditches, swales, and then some of those baffle boxes as well. And then the Maltezo Street is to the south of that connects into that same system and helps alleviate some of that flooding, and also that along Benning as well. And then lastly, the Calhoun Avenue is the stretch along Calhoun there to south of Forest Street, to where you can kind of see in the pictures where you just have pretty much it runs off the side of the road right onto the ditch in those areas. So what we're going to touch on in this presentation is answering the 6 questions you guys presented: is our firm's capabilities, our performance record, if we can furnish the services within budget and on time, our experience with grants and previous city work, and also similar project work that we've done. And just to briefly tell you about Provo Rish, we started in 1991, a 3-person firm. We're up to 110 people now, and we have 14 offices total, with 10 of them across the panhandle here in the local area. And we currently have 17 counties and 25 cities and towns that we do continuing engineering services and these type of services for across Northwest Florida. Here locally, we have 2 offices local, one in Fort Walton Beach and one in Santa Rosa Beach, that just basically bookend the city of Destin. So we have folks that operate out of both of those offices that are local to this site. So it makes our response time and being able to come to meetings and everything like that real quick. Introduce the team that we have here. The first one here is me. A lot of experience with the city of Destin. Got some similar project management experience with projects like this. 2 of them of note here that I listed was the Leon County and Okaloosa County projects, where they were similar, addressing similar type needs of this. The principal of our firm is Cliff Nauer. He likewise has just got a whole plethora of experience that is exactly this type of project across the 4 or 5 counties here, the Okaloosa, Walton, Washington, in Holmes County and Bay County. Cameron Morris is our environmental specialist. He's one of those guys that's got the environmental background, but also the engineering background as well. And he's got a couple of projects as well on his resume that are local projects that are these similar type of projects here in Okaloosa County, the Yellow River Watershed Threats Assessment, and then a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services project as well with the road stream crossings threat assessments. And Malcolm Williams is our project manager. He's got a lot of experience here with City of Destin, worked a lot with the staff here, familiar with the regulations in the water management district here as well. And again, has had similar experience with like the Leon County FSU Stormwater Management Plan, and also doing some work here in the City of Destin. The next thing to touch on just briefly is our performance record. We have several letters here that are from clients that we've worked with over the past 20 years that have all written recommendations as to our follow through and the deliverable aspects of what we present to them. It's meet the deadlines, get stuff done under budgets, and manage the grants and everything for them. These are a couple of local, one for the city of, or the town of Cinco Bayou, and the other one's Northwest Florida Water Management District, also making recommendations of our service. And next point is to be able to furnish the services on budget and under time, or on time. And because of the fact that most of what we do is for these towns and cities and counties across the panhandle, what we do with all of them is work on grants. And we understand that you have fixed budgets and you have tight time frames, you have guidelines that you have to follow. And as a result of that, what we do is we have these programs that we do the schedule of the project scheduling, but also one of the things on this, there's a lot of info there, but one biggest one is whenever we're looking at our design fees, one of the things we feel like that helps us help the communities we work with is we use local resources of the people here. So we don't have a lot of travel time. We don't have, a lot of time trying to get acclimated to what is going on, but we have on the ground people that all live, work in the community and everything. And with the grants assistant part, I'm going to turn it over here to Cameron Morris and let him talk a little bit about this.
Cameron Morris, I'm the environmental manager for Preble Rish. The following table is a list of some of the local municipalities and counties that our firm represents. And it gives you a tabulated value of all the grants that we've secured for our clients, which is predominantly stormwater and drainage related, and is in excess of $200 million over the past roughly 10 years. Before coming to Preble Wish, I worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, working for the Partners Program, where we coordinated with other agencies, including NIFWF, to do restoration projects. So I've got years of experience working with NIFWF and doing grant coordination. And presently with Preble Rish, we worked last year on the Coastal Dune Lakes Restoration Project that the state park is now implementing with NIFWF, and are currently working with NIFWF personnel to develop a road stream crossing threats assessment for the Choctawhatchee watershed, which is prioritizing roadways for impairments to listed species and their critical habitat.
Good afternoon, Cliff Nauer, Vice President of Preble Rish. Thanks for the opportunity. Up on this slide, you can see that that's a history of our clients that we've worked with over the past, since 1991. We currently have 46 continuing contracts, 17 counties and 25 towns. We are fortunate because we continue to do the work for our clients year after year, and are fortunate enough to have kept them all over this time. Okay, let's see. That's not good, Joe. Help me out, buddy. Okay, the arrow, gotcha. So as Joe mentioned, we've done some work previously on the Indian Bayou Country Club area. Back in 2011, the planning department was having some issues trying to figure out kind of a big picture cost for what it might take to fix some of these areas. We had our survey crews come down. We surveyed the outfall where it discharges into the wetlands and a bunch of the upland areas to figure out what the problem was with all the inlets. We were able to come up with a cost estimate and some modeling to give you guys an idea of what the cost would be to fix it. We did that at no charge to the city, mostly trying to get you guys headed the right direction. Our team members have done a lot of work in the city. This is a list of projects that our team members have done that are mostly developments within the city. We're familiar with your land development code, and we understand how you guys operate. Similar work from a federal standpoint. The Chipola River Cutoff was a natural stream restoration project that we recently got permitted. Hasn't started construction yet, but should probably later this year. Baguette stream bank stabilization, and then Oyster Lake outfall, where U.S. Fish and Wildlife funded a outfall from a coastal dune lake that had been cut off for about 30 years. State projects, Battery Park in Apalachicola is a stormwater project very similar to the issues that you guys have here, and I'll go into discussion about that one in just a minute. Batzel stormwater, and then Econfina Creek water management area are other projects we've done for the state. County projects, lots of NRCS, Okaloosa, Walton, Escambia, and then municipal, Town of Cinco Bayou, and City of Bluntstown. Oyster Lake outfall was Oyster Lake was a coastal dune lake until 76 when a hurricane hit. It had been closed off since 76, and we were able to obtain funding through Water Management District and also through U.S. Fish and Wildlife to restore the outfall. This is Battery Park. This is a similar project to what you guys have here. We were able to help them get some grant money and basically put in swales and exfiltration systems and baffle boxes through downtown Apalachicola to provide some treatment prior to discharge. This project, we lowered all the utilities before we started the construction work so that we didn't interrupt service to all the residents and prevented an uprising. This is one we're working on right now. We actually just finished design and permitting on the Okaloosa County Oak Hill project. You can see what it looked like, and it goes to construction here shortly. Town of Cinco Bayou, that's our outfall project that we did last year. And so just a quick summary of why our company should be doing this project for you. You could not have built a better project for our company. We're local. We would do the stormwater modeling here in-house. I got 6 survey crews that we would send from Santa Rosa Beach over to here. We have no subs other than geotech. Everything on this project we would handle ourselves in-house. We've done over $200 million worth of projects in the local area that are grant-related projects that are similar to this. We're close to you guys, and we feel like we're the only firm that provides the attention and the detail that are going to be necessary to coordinate these community projects. It's really going to require a campaign to get the neighborhoods involved in these projects and make sure they understand what's going on, because you're going to be interrupting service in a lot of places, including lots of driveways, lots of utilities, and lots of construction work in everybody's front yard. And unless somebody coordinates the community aspect of this with each of these neighborhoods individually, it's going to be a tough, tough project for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. Would you mind taking a few questions?
Yes, sir.
Great. First up, Mr. Foreman.
Yeah, how you do the latter part where you deal with the neighborhood. Let's say that we have the same event we had 2 years ago, where all of a sudden
Yep.
it starts raining every day, all day.
Yep.
And you're in the business of it making it go away. And
Yep.
so the question I got, the question really is, how do you prepare a neighborhood for the work you're gonna do?
Well, what we've done in the past that worked pretty well is we set up well, we did two things. We set up a website first off so that we put door hangers on their doors that have a website they can go to so that they can not only ask us questions through the website, but they can see their neighbors' questions as well. And so we respond to those questions on the website. We have our phone number on the website. And we also start off the project with door-to-door door hangers and a community meeting. And so the best way to handle a project like this is just to try to keep everybody as informed as possible. And unfortunately, a lot of times they don't like the answer as far as, for example, the schedule or when things are going to be done. But we have found as long as they're well informed and they understand what the schedule is on the project, they're pretty agreeable and easy to deal with. And so I would suggest probably doing a website similar to this for each one of the neighborhoods that are impacted would probably be the best bet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Marler?
First question for Greg. On the 6 that they listed here, I noticed there's one missing, and that's over off the other side of Joe's Bayou, that area between Bayou Drive and Indian Trail, that whole area, Mars and Jupiter Street and all those areas that are flooded. I was just wondering why they weren't included in the
We included the projects that were in our stormwater master plan, and that area was not mentioned in our stormwater master plan.
Okay. The only other thing I had was I know the problems around the Juanita Drive, Snapper Avenue, and Maltazo, because that area, all that area, along Benning Drive was where it actually flooded mostly, but it all collected in one person's yard, it looked like. So, okay, that's the only question I had.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Who is Geotech?
On our geotech, we would use Southern Earth Science.
Southern Air Science?
Southern Earth Science, yes, sir.
Are you familiar with any of the upcoming projects we have going on, that where you can coordinate or plan accordingly, so you're not going in there tearing the place up, doing stormwater, and then we come right behind you 6 months later and do something else? So we kind of incorporate the two together, so we're not on top of each other doing things twice.
Well, I mean, if we were selected to handle these projects, for example, we would sit down and figure out exactly what your schedule is on all of them, so that we hold hands as opposed to fight each other. We don't want to come in and tear up the streets after, for example, you've done a resurfacing project. So, I would say that to start with, we would coordinate all the construction activities with whatever your current schedule is. And I would guess that your schedule changes on a regular basis too. And so the best bet would be to have a game plan on what projects need to come down the pike first for construction, which ones should wait till later, and match that up with y'all's schedule is what we would do.
The big one would be that crosstown connector that
Yes, sir.
currently working for.
Yep.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. Thank y'all. A couple questions. The first one being, what sort of warranty do you guys offer? What is the sort of life expectancy of the work you'll be doing in terms of piping and other aspects? And then secondly, in terms of maintenance, can you shed a little light on how you would handle any of that? Is that once you're complete, it's in our hands? Just some thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the type of systems that we're talking about doing here are a combination of open swales, exfiltration, and baffle boxes or treatment boxes. Okay, so the baffle boxes and the treatment boxes, they do require maintenance. They have to be vacuumed out. The schedule for maintenance on the baffle boxes, you really don't know until they're into operation, because the screens fill up on them. And so for example, in an area like Indian Bayou, for example, you have lots and lots of trees and pine trees. They're going to be dumping pine needles into that system pretty regular. And so the schedule for maintenance of the baffle boxes is dependent on how much vegetation you have coming down there. As far as the open swales go, the majority of the time the landowners are going to continue to maintain those. They're going to mow those with their yard just like they would do anything else. And so they need to be constructed in such a fashion that somebody with a push mower can mow them. There really shouldn't be any additional maintenance for the city on those. If it's an area that you guys already take care of, you're probably going to continue to take care of it. The exfiltration system is another area that does require some maintenance. Again, on the exfiltration systems, they're heavily dependent on how much sediment you have coming to them. And so when we design them, we try to design them so that the inlets don't readily allow sediment just to dump straight into them. We try to have a skimmer of some sort to prevent the sediment from going into the exfil.
A mesh of some,
Or a ditch block
Yeah.
prior to the inlet so that we catch any sediment prior to going into the exfil. And exfil systems do require maintenance. And so, again, it's just like the baffle box. It depends on how much sediment and debris you have coming to it. But these systems inherently require maintenance. We would design it with the minimum amount of maintenance required that we could. But when you guys dive into the baffle box game, it absolutely has maintenance associated with it.
sure, but we'll have our drainage, which we need.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Tell me a little bit, what methods of treatment are y'all typically gonna use in this project, or would you assume you'd use?
Yeah, so I would say there's probably two different methods are primarily what we would be using. One is going to be open swales with ditch blocks. The other one is going to be exfiltration. The exfiltration really only works in areas where I have a fairly deep groundwater table. And the majority of the areas that you guys are in where you're having these problems have a groundwater table that mounds up after a long period of consistent rain. And so the areas that we're going to be able to use exfiltration are probably going to be very limited. I would guess the majority of this project is going to be open swales so that it perks into the ground, and we also provide conveyance to a discharge. And so opening up the discharge areas is going to be critical. That would be probably one of the first things we do is get the discharge conveyance areas opened up, and then you only have open swales for perk or exfiltration. I mean, unless we're going to start buying property and building ponds, that's kind of what you're limited to on these projects.
Okay, and then one last question. Do you have, I would assume you've got a set, well, assume is the wrong word, as we all know, but what sort of system of checks and balances do you have, quality controls along the way?
Yeah, we have a quality control plan that our company has adopted to where the design engineers report to a review team. And so as we get, for example, a 30% set of plans, a 60% set of plans, and a 90% set of plans, we do an internal review with a separate group of PEs.
Okay.
After it makes it through our internal review, we'll usually sit down with the client and go through it with the client after it's been through our internal review.
So with a separate set of eyes, they can
Yep.
catch something that someone else might have missed.
Yes, ma'am. It's hard to find your own mistakes sometimes. And so
Absolutely.
we try to use a completely separate set of PEs to do our QA, QC.
Fantastic, thank you all.
Good questions. Ms. Ramsdell, anyone else? See no other discussion. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming forward. Appreciate it. Mr. Willard, again, if you give us about 30 seconds to a minute after they leave the room. Great, thanks. Okay, City Council, if y'all go ahead and take just a few seconds, go ahead and score what's fresh on your mind. Okay, Mr. Willard, everybody looks ready. You can bring him in. Thank you. Where Mr. Braden? Is he going to rest? Okay, just looking at Braden. Did you get a chance to score? That's all right. Did you get a chance to score yours? Did you score? Okay, good. Excellent. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank y'all for coming tonight.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, the protocol you heard a little bit ahead of time is 15 minutes on the presentation, and Mr. Bailey will keep a clock on that. When the presentation is done, we do have as much time, if that's okay with y'all, for Q&A, so that could go well beyond the 15-minute mark.
Yes,
if that's
sir.
all right?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Mr. Bailey, you ready, sir? Okay, please. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Sean Justice, and I represent Volkert, and our presentation team with Volkert is standing here behind me. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to you our qualifications, our company, and our breadth of services and approach to this project. We certainly appreciate this drainage improvement project and the opportunity here for the City of Destin. We understand it's funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. If I can take a moment and introduce to you our leadership team for this project. First and foremost, Mr. Mike Warnke is our project manager that we're proposing for this. Mike brings 19 years of experience managing similar projects for local governments for Volkert. Justin O'Donnell will be leading our drainage design and analysis portion. Justin has 14 years experience, and he is our lead drainage engineer in the company. Mr. Fred Brown is responsible for Northwest Florida Construction Engineering and Inspection, CEI, for Volkert. And so Fred is very familiar with projects of this type and the inspection needs once it goes to construction. And then last but not least is Mr. Scott Golden. Scott Golden has 26 years of experience, extensive drainage design experience, former district drainage design engineer for Florida DOT. A little bit about our firm. We were established in 1925. We are celebrating our 90th year in business this year. We're very excited about that. It's our 90th birthday. And this year we were recognized by Engineer News Record. We're ranked number 98 out of 500 firms in the country as far as transportation or design in general. We like that. We're in the top 20% nationwide. It's not just about the number of people that we employ, but it really reflects the capacity of our firm to deliver projects just like this for our clients. We have a comprehensive in-house team. Volkert can provide all of the services that have been advertised in the RFQ in the scope of services that has been laid or set forth. But we also recognize the need and have brought on local team members. Jenkins Engineering Incorporated will be providing survey and possible right-of-way mapping on our team. And then we've also reached out to NOVA to provide geotechnical engineering to test the soils and analyze those so we give you the best engineering solution. A little bit about our services, the breadth of services. Drainage design, of course, foremost for this particular project, not just roadway, but civil and site drainage design, drainage analysis. And then also the computer-aided drafting and design, the CAD work, the production of the plans to communicate the drainage engineer's intent so that you have a seamless and an efficient, successful construction project. Utility coordination, we deal with underground utilities all the time throughout our design and plus the inspection, so we're very well versed in the utility companies and how to locate utilities, relocate utilities, and coordinate utilities during the design and construction. Of course, our CEI services, I've already spoke to that, and Fred will get to that in a little bit. One interesting thing that I read in the RFP, it's an interesting facet about this project, is the possibility of real estate or right-of-way services. Volkert is a full-service firm. We have right-of-way capabilities. We have a right-of-way service line within our company. Mr. David Bell will be leading that. He's a native of Northwest Florida, former FDOT right-of-way employee, and can assist with any property appraisals that need to be done, as well as property acquisition or any kind of negotiations or coordination with property owners. In regard to environmental aspects of this project, of course, there'll be site assessments and permitting, and it's about drainage capacity. We understand that, but it's also about water quality. And Volkert employs and has environmental technicians and environmental engineers within our firm that we bring to this contract. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Mike Warnke, and he'll kind of go in depth a little bit as to our org chart.
Hello, I'm Mike Warnke. I'll be the project manager for the project. Basically, I'll be the point of contact throughout the project for the city personnel. Like you said, this is our org chart, all the people that we have assigned currently to the project, including our subcontractors. And point here is that all these people are currently assigned, so once we if we are selected and get a notice to proceed, they are available to start immediately on the project. The next several slides will deal with the performance record. First one is the State of Florida Governor Savings Award that Volkert received in 2013, and this is for implementation of bold and innovative cost-saving business practices while increasing the effectiveness of state government operations. The next recommendation is from the City of Daphne for the Captain O'Neill Drive roadway and drainage improvement project. For this project, we did provide design and CEI services, very similar to this project. Some key notes in the letter: the project was completed on time and within budget. Also, the letter does state Volkert's a highly regarded consulting firm capable of fulfilling general engineering services for local municipalities, and that they would continue to use Volkert, which they do. The next letter is from the City of Foley for the Northwest Quadrant Drainage Project. Part of the letter, some key items, was at the start of the project, the local residents were concerned with the project and how it was going. But after the sidewalks and drainage inlets were installed in the first street, the residents were able to see the benefits of the project. They've also stated, we've received numerous positive comments from the project area, and the letter further states that this is one of the better projects they've seen in the City of Foley. The next recommendation letters are both on the Little Bay Finfish and Shellfish Habitat Restoration Project. This was the largest shoreline and marsh restoration project that was done in the state of Alabama. It restored approximately 1 mile of shoreline and 30 acres of salt marsh. The first letter is from the state of Alabama. The second letter is from the American Council of Engineering Companies, where we got a national recognition award for the project. The last recommendation letter is from the State Department of Transportation for our work we did on the I-10 bridge after Hurricane Ivan. The biggest thing of note here, of course, after Ivan, this was a high priority and fast track project, but even with that, we did finish the project 26 days ahead of schedule. Next slide has to do with the DOT, our latest DOT performance record scores. And the takeaway on this is basically Volkert consistently scores, or meets or exceeds expectation for DOT projects. Again, Volkert is a full service firm. We have over 800 employees corporate-wide. We're committed to the city of Destin on this project. We are a local firm. The project will be performed out of our Pensacola office. With support, we do have a new Panama City office we just recently opened, and our other offices throughout Northwest Florida and South Alabama. Our staff and resources are available to begin immediately upon notice to proceed. We have a proven history with our clients of projects completed on time and within budget. I'm now going to turn it over to Justin, Scott, and Fred to talk a little more specifics about this project.
This project includes two things: stormwater treatment and stormwater conveyance. We understand that the goal of the adding treatment is to improve the water quality in Choctawhatchee Bay. The stormwater master plan calls for the use of swells, exfiltration trenches, and hydrodynamic separators to provide the stormwater treatment. We're going to analyze these concepts with the current stormwater methods and tools in order to optimize the stormwater treatment methods that we're preparing for the final design and prepare the most cost-effective and beneficial design possible for the stormwater treatment. As far as stormwater conveyance goes, flooding is an issue in several of the project areas. We'll provide a design that is cost-effective, constructible, maintainable, and improves the drainage in those areas. We've field reviewed all the project areas and can discuss specific design alternatives during Q&A. Scott?
Thank you, and good evening. I don't have a lot to say that other than it's important that, and the Volkert team recognizes that you have limited construction dollars on this project, and it's our goal to stretch those dollars as far as possible. While realizing that you don't want to cause a maintenance nightmare or increase your maintenance on the project. So that's important to recognize, and I don't want to pick on your master plan, that's not what I'm trying to do, but I noticed in your master plan there was several locations where there was 15-inch reinforced concrete pipe that was proposed. Well, you can go in and put in 18-inch concrete pipe for about the same price, maybe even a little less. That's a few advantages. One is it's not susceptible to clogging, it's a little easier to maintain, doesn't cost you anymore. We're going to design this project in a manner to maximize your dollars. Justin mentioned two things: stormwater treatment. That's obviously very important. We want to maximize the treatment areas. Identify the drainage areas that are going to those treatment areas. If you dig a hole and there's no water going to it, you're not going to get anything out of it. The other thing was the flooding and mitigating the flooding. You have to set a baseline, and establishing the baseline of where the flooding is occurring, what those elevations are, going out and meeting with those property owners and discussing where they've had the problems, establishing that baseline, implementing then a solution that actually works. Then you have to look downstream, make sure you're not creating a problem downstream. As your quality assurance, quality control manager, that'll be my job. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Again, my name is Fred Brown. I'm in charge of the CEI portion of Volkert in Northwest Florida. We have offices Vernon, Freeport, Crestview, and Pensacola. We offer a well-seasoned group of inspectors and project engineers for projects like this. We do a lot of FDOT work, but we also do a lot of city and county work. And the big thing that we can offer is we've got guys with different specialties throughout the area. We're not just stationed in one part of the Panhandle. We're across the Panhandle. Right now, I'm assigned to a project, 331 Bridge over Choctawhatchee Bay, so I'm really close, and I can schedule the proper CEI guys to come to a project like this and be involved. And they understand working in these neighborhoods that they're working for the people that live there. We don't rely on the public information firms to go out to talk to them. We'll go door to door, hand them flyers, so they know that they need to talk to Volkert if they have a problem, and that seems to make these projects go a lot better.
The next couple slides we're going to go through have to do with the schedule that we've laid out for the project. I'm going to flip past that one and show this one. Basically, our plan of attack is start off obviously with a kickoff meeting, and then we'll do some further field reviews, further reviews of the stormwater management plan, in coordination with the city staff, the Fish and Wildlife Foundation, DEP, NPDS homeowners, and the utilities. And our idea here is that we would meet with the city staff in order to prioritize the projects, basically 1 through 6, and then attack the projects 2 at a time. So we'll start on the surveying and geotechnical on the first 2 priority projects that are agreed upon by the city. When the surveying's done on those 2 projects, they'll jump into surveying the next projects while the design's starting, so we can have constant movement on the projects. Based on our schedule right now, we're proposing that the entire project, including construction, can be done in approximately 14 months. Of course, the final schedule and will be agreed upon in the kickoff of the project.
Included this because of the type of funding that's included on this project or funding this project. Volkert has extensive experience with grant construction assistance, both for the procurement or the receipt of grants on behalf of cities, counties, municipalities, then also in the execution of work in accordance with the rules, regulations, any kind of requirements associated with the funding. So we have a pretty broad experience with that. In 2013, over $30 million in grant funds received for local government clients along the Gulf Coast.
Okay, we're going to kind of quickly go through some previous work we've done for the city and similar work. One project we did do for the city back in 1991 was the Destin Community Center. And the point here, the project was completed ahead of schedule and under budget. On the next slide, we've got a couple DOT projects that we did within the city limit. The first one was a bridge rehab for the bridge over East Pass in Destin. The second one was a PD&E study that was done for Highway 98 from East Pass Bridge to Emerald Coast Parkway that looked at alternate alignments for 98. Ultimately, when the PD&E study was completed, the no-build alternative was selected by the stakeholders. Then we have some similar work project that we're currently working on or have completed. One project's design services for widening and drainage improvements on County Road 297 in Escambia County. We have Stillbrook Road drainage improvement project, again similar to this. And I guess for the sake of time, these are all on your leave behind, so we'll move forward. And you can ask any questions. Okay,
Awesome.
We good? Or
Yep, you're good. Thank you so
Okay.
very much. Okay, well, I got some questions, if that's okay. First up, Mr. Foreman.
I must have hit the button first. On your schedule here, this is fascinating. Are you going to be working on the different areas of the city that we're talking about here simultaneously? Or is it going to be staged, or how do you foresee this schedule taking place?
Like I say, we're proposing to prioritize the projects and work on them two at a time. And some of them are, a couple of projects are kind of interconnected anyway. So we'll be doing surveying and geotechnical on one project. As soon as the survey and geotech's complete and approved, we'll start on the preliminary design on that project. And at the same time, the geotech and survey will take place on the prioritized 3 and 4 projects.
Okay.
So then, as you cycle through, if you look at the schedule, there's not a lot of overlap where we're overlapping and taxing the project teams, but everything continues to move throughout the
Well,
project.
you've got very precise dates in here.
Well, they're based on a arbitrary start date at this point, obviously.
Okay.
So that's why I said, you know, the final survey or the final schedule will be determined, you know, after the notice to proceed. But this is how we proceed. We can move through it pretty quickly, keep everything moving. Like you said, on projects like this, a lot of times, you know, for the citizens, residents to be able to see people working, boots on the ground are what makes the difference. So keeping it moving.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Ms. Trammell?
Yes, I guess I have a question regarding the Destin Community Center, if somebody can answer that. What was the extent of your involvement in that?
We did the complete design and construction observation on that project.
Just the observation?
No, we did the design as well.
Okay, because I guess that's your first ding. We've spent more than 3 months and $140,000 trying to fix the leaks.
Okay.
Since the building was built. So my next question, I guess, would be 331. What's your involvement in 331? Is that the whole road, or just the bridge, or just?
We're doing the CEI with another firm for the bridge, for the new northbound bridge.
Okay, you're just doing the bridge part.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thanks. That's all I need to know.
All right, thank you, Ms. Trammell. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. Mr. Golden, I was wondering if perhaps you could shed some light. You mentioned you're in charge of QC and QA. What sort of systems of checks and balances and quality control checks do you have in place along the way?
Volker has a defined 6-step process. This person designs it, somebody goes behind and checks it, next person follows up, makes sure it's done. Every firm that walks through here is going to have a defined quality control and quality assurance. What separates the
Mr. Golden, do you mind speaking to the mic? Sorry about that.
My apologies,
No
Mayor.
problem. No problem. You're good.
What separates the Volker team is we really put a lot of emphasis on not just checking the plans to make sure the plan's right. That's important. What's important is the concepts and the big picture design that goes into that. Any firm that walks through this door is going to have a very good quality assurance, quality control program. They're going to go bam, bam, bam. The plans are going to be right. Chances are the quantities are going to be right. With Volker, the quantities are going to be right. We're going to check the plans. But what's more important is the big picture, the conceptual design, making sure the stormwater gets treated, making sure the flooding gets mitigated.
Okay.
And that's my job. Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. And I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for the project manager, but in terms of the treatments that you'll be using, how maintenance intensive are they? And what can we expect in terms of a warranty or any sort of follow-up maintenance from you all?
Okay, as I understand it, the project is to design and oversee the construction of it. I don't believe that.
So then that would not fall within your purview?
Correct. The exfiltration systems that are concepted out, experience in the southern parts of the state, they're designed for about a 25-year life cycle cost, and then you've got to dig them up and replace them. Those are probably, those exfiltration systems should be, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, a last resort. Your swale systems are much more easily maintained. They'll work just as well, if not better, because if you have an exfiltration system, you have to be worried about where the groundwater's at. If they're below the groundwater, they'll work, just not as well. So the swale systems are going to be our first option and our first attempt. If we can't get the required treatment out of that, then that's when you go underground. And a big part of that is how much area have you got draining to that swale system. If you have 10 acres draining to an area the size of this, it's not going to work. All your pollutants are going to go downstream. So there's some tools out there in the toolbox. University of Central Florida and the Florida Department of Transportation have done a lot of research in that, and there's a lot of best management practices out there that actually help predict your TMDLs, because they're called total maximum daily loads, you're familiar, and help predict the amount of phosphorus, the amount of total nitrogen, pollutant loadings, and things like that. And we're prepared to do some of that analysis as
Do you
well.
typically use baffle boxes or no?
I beg your pardon?
The baffle boxes?
You're talking about like the storm scepters and the, those aren't my favorite things. I can remember back, I'm going to give my age here, back in the, I want to say in the mid-90s, I worked with the city of Destin at that time as the district drainage engineer. I believe we put in some storm scepters going into Destin Bayou down here into the harbor. My instinct is they're very maintenance intensive. You have to get out there and clean them out for them to be effective. And so those storm scepters and those hydraulic type structures,
yeah,
those are maintenance intensive, and I would tend to try to shy away from those as much as possible. The swale systems is about
swales it is?
Yeah, that's the best option that's out there. They're easy to maintain. If they silt in and get clogged up, you take a backhoe or an excavator out there and you dig them out and you reestablish it. And you know, your pollutants are hauled off then. So those are very good systems, and that's really the goal, is what you want. You fall back on the exfiltration systems, and then you fall back on the storm scepters and the other hydraulic structures.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Wood?
Just a quick question on the public involvement. I'm sure you're all well aware that anytime you deal with as many neighborhoods as we're going to deal with, communicating with the public is a big deal. So what's your process? How do you go about your public involvement dealings, and what kind of success or issues have you had in the past on making that happen?
I'll start the discussion on that because I think everyone in here has experience in this area. First of all, is you know the stakeholders. You have to know the stakeholders. Obviously, the residents are stakeholders in that. Yourselves are stakeholders. You identify the residents that are within, you know, in some cases you determine within so many feet of the center line of the road. Really, it's, in the case of this project, it's within the boundary area of the study. It has to be that face-to-face dialogue. It has to be that communication. That's at an introductory level. And then it continues on to a more formal public involvement process a lot of times. And certainly we're experienced in that with our work with FDOT and even with the city and county government, is to be able to hold a forum such that any issues, concerns are heard, are vetted, are understood. And then design is an iterative process. And you take input like that to be able to then inform your design. And as Scott mentioned, it really does fall back on public involvement to even communicate with the residents to establish where the flooding is occurring. What is happening? What are you seeing here? How can we best help that? So that's my at least response. Anybody else who wants to add to that?
I'll step in. And in our field reviews, some of the locations where the swale system are proposed, quite honestly, folks are taking care of those areas. It's basically their front yard in between the sidewalk and the roadway. And I'm sure that there's some folks that's not going to be happy about that. And I think the best in public involvement is education, and education as best you can. We're trying to clean up the bayou. We're trying to improve water quality. We're trying to do a good thing. Obviously, I probably don't need to state this, but I will anyway. Your most valuable resource is your citizens and your natural resources. And I think that's important to recognize. This team recognizes that. And we want to try to do the best that we can and clean up as much of the stormwater as we can. Realizing that, you know, part of the problem is all the fertilizer that goes on the yards. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's a lot of your pollutant loading comes from the yards. I mean, they're beautiful lawns, especially back in here in Indian Bayou, but that's part of the problem. So a good education program as part of that public involvement, I think, is very important.
I mentioned the construction engineering inspection. We teach our guys to, you know, to respect the people that are out there. You know, the contractor's going to be out there working, and he's going to make a mess. We found that if we go tell the people that it's coming, they accept it a little bit better. We can give them a schedule, tell them, you know, they're going to be working over here. It's going to be a mess, but it's going to get cleaned up. It's going to get sodded or put back. We give out cards for our project engineers and management people so that if they've got a problem, they call us, and we can get with the contractor and get it rectified. So we know we're out there. We're working for y'all, and we don't need those people calling y'all. We'd rather them call us, and we can deal with it and get the contractor to fix it.
I know y'all have lots of FDOT experience on your teams. I'm looking at Mr. Golden here, who I remember for many years on the TPO and safety and design for District 3. Let's talk about maintenance of traffic. That's something we got to be able to do through this. We're going through these neighborhoods, tearing up swales. There's going to be stuff in the way in the road occasionally. So how do you guys deal with maintenance of traffic?
For the context, everything's context sensitive, right? I mean, if you're doing maintenance of traffic out here on US 98, it's a different effort than back in a subdivision. And recognizing that we want to spend dollars wisely, every time you put a barricade out there, it's going to cost a little more money. And low-speed residential neighborhoods. The other issue that the team's actually considered is pedestrians. You know, as you're cutting these swales and the contractor's going to be out there working, I think we have to consider the pedestrian traffic in the neighborhoods as well. So that's important. I really appreciate, Councilman, you asking that question because we had actually given that quite a bit of thought. And I think that, you know, cones for the daytime work, it's going to be daytime work unless you really want to disturb the residents at night, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. But the daytime work, simple cones will be good enough, and restoring and protecting the work zones, if you will, overnight with barricades and whatever should be fairly straightforward. My biggest concern is with the pedestrians and creating drop-offs adjacent to the sidewalks and things like that, and we'll protect those as well. Thank you for that question. Very good.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Trammell?
Well, I'm big into the environment too. I want to know if you have a plan when you're meeting with the property owners affected, and we're talking about water quality, to give them other alternatives other than the Home Depot, Lowe's, high nitrogen fertilizer to put on these beautiful lawns, and something that will be relatively the same, will give them the same product, give them the same outcome with different products to help prevent some of this stuff. Is that part of your plan?
Part of our environmental involvement will be to not only educate the citizens and the public and the residents, but then also to be able to communicate to them best management practices. Now, best management practices as it relates to how they care for their property, and then how the end user, in this case the water quality, is impacted with that. If I understand your question, we have the expertise within the firm. We will develop a plan. That's not a problem. I don't have one with us here at the proposal,
Well,
but I understand. But we would certainly want to do that. We want to make sure that residents are aware of impacts, whether intended or unintended, and how they can participate in this overall water quality effort.
I think a lot of them want to participate. They just don't have the resources to go figure out what it is that would help with the water quality.
Okay, and our commitment, I want you to hear that loud and clear. Our commitment will be to to be able to provide them those resources, to be able to provide them an education in that regard, and to be able to help in the more macro sense, in the greater picture for the city of Destin.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Any other discussion? You see none? Well done, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Willard's going to walk y'all out, if you don't mind. We are, but let me, yep, we will give y'all just a couple minutes recess, actually. If y'all can go and make sure you fill out your scoring system, and then when we're done, we'll give Mr. Bailey to calculate, and we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I have a
Mr. Wood.
procedural question.
Yes.
Is there anything, as I'm scoring my scores here, is there anything in our procedures that say that if I had a couple of them that were tied, is there anything wrong with that? Like, we have enough voters here to break a tie, so.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure, all right.
We just throw that one out. That's what I did with that all the time.
Yeah.
I figured that. I did.
Mr. Ansel? Yes. Oh, yeah, yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, please.
Just a question, did we give them a specific cost that they had, these are the numbers, you must come within that?
We gave them the estimate of the, for the grant.
And were they all under, were they all right at that exact number? Was there any?
This process is for you to select on qualifications. We will then
Okay.
negotiate a contract with them and bring it back. But the
Got
actual scope is they've seen those numbers based on the application for the grant.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ramswell. Any other discussion? Mr. Braden? All right. All right, well, go ahead and score when you're done. Give it to Mr. Bailey, and then we'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, let's go and call the meeting back to order. I want to thank all three teams that came and presented from Atkins, Preble Rish, as well as Volkert. Outstanding job, a lot of time and effort and wisdom was poured into those presentations. We greatly appreciate your time coming out tonight. Fortunately or unfortunately, we do have to pick a winner, and the council has voted, and I will read the score, and then once I do, I will need, there's a recommended motion from council to direct Greg, Mr. Casella, to get with the firm and negotiate the final contract. The leading vote getter was Preble Rish after the council voted. And so with that, need to have council direction discussion from that. Motion?
I'll make the request.
Okay. Ms. Ramswell?
You can, whoever.
Mr. Foreman?
I move that the firm of Preble Rish be awarded the contract for the drainage improvements.
Yeah, you got the rest of the motion there? Yeah.
I move the council authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with the top-ranked firm of Preble Rish for professional consulting engineering services for the Gulf Environmental Benefit Fund Improvements Project.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Ms. Ramswell has a second. Ms. Foreman is the first. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, let's call the vote.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have an issue with our voting board. Can you just do a manual vote for now until I get this resolved?
Be glad to, Mr. Warren. Thank you so much. Okay, we're doing a roll call vote starting on my right. Ms. Trammell, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Trammell's a yes. Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Wood's a yes. Mr. Marlar?
Yes.
Mr. Marlar's a yes. Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
Mr. Foreman's a yes. Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon's a yes. Ms. Ramswell?
Yes.
Mr. Ramswell's a yes. And Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Mr. Braden's a yes. A motion passed unanimous. Congratulations, Preble Rish. But thank you again to all the other firms that presented. Outstanding job, each one of y'all. Thank you so much for participating. Mr. Casella will get with probably Mr. Rector and see where things go. Outstanding. Okay, moving right along, project reports from comments from mayor and council. First up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. First question was, where are we at with the park, the Heritage Park? What's the status with that?
It's about 66 2/3 design. We are presenting that project on Wednesday to the ORAC for funding. So we anticipate it's one of the top 10 or 11 projects under the Restore Act. So we anticipate it, are hopeful that it will get at least funded, partially funded, if not fully funded, after the ORAC makes a recommendation to BCC.
When will we know something on the whole easement issue?
We're working through that process. The state of Florida does allow us to do an exchange. Hopefully we can work out some type of arrangement that would accomplish it.
Thanks. If Lance is not here, I had a question about the fence on our ballparks over here. I know we were working on repairing those. I don't know if we'd run out of material or where we're at with that.
Replacing the fencing at the Morgan Sports Center will be incorporated into the fiscal year 16 capital project.
And when do you see a finalization on the whole jet ski pontoon boat count on the harbor?
We expect that over the next couple, 3 weeks, that we would have all those reconciliations done for all the different parcels.
Kelly Street, somebody said that down on the Kelly Street, the west end, they had water leaks or something underneath the road, reason that we had 2 holes.
We had an abandoned service line that developed underneath Kelly, I think in close proximity to Mr. Marlar's home. It was abandoned service line. DW terminated it at the main and subsequently, patched the patch that developed.
Thanks, that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. I just have a couple follow-up things as well. When is the taxi regulation background and information scheduled to come back?
I'm hopeful to have that to you on July the 6th.
July 6th, okay. And then the short-term rental follow-up?
We're working through those issues. You think sometime in July, early August? Well, I think more comprehensively, replace all the things that we were going to do to amend the ordinance. Yeah, we're probably talking about, the earliest would be the second meeting in July, probably the first meeting in August.
Okay, and then I guess the third thing is the festive marketplace perimeter that we discussed. The lines were not where we had anticipated originally down the harbor. The open container.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. I know that the perimeter is basically the sidewalk.
Right, well, it was my understanding when we had discussed it at council that staff was going to look into actually where the line was and how we could perhaps address some of the issues that have occurred as a result of that line being along 98 rather than slightly further south.
We can look at that. I wasn't aware there was a follow-up item, but we'll look and see what we can do.
Okay, great. I think that's actually all I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Dixon?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Foreman?
Mayor, I'm going to give you a quick report on the Okaloosa County Transit Cooperative meeting that I attended last week. I gave each of you a handout on that, the minutes of the meeting itself, so that it explains it. Basically, what I learned from that meeting, essentially, is that we have two routes in the city of Destin that can contribute more to our travel across town, to our tourist population, more so than we probably realize. And I think what they were looking for is they wanted input from each of the cities as to how they would organize those routes. Now, since then, they have let a contract to a company, I think out of Jacksonville or somewhere, for $2.6 million to manage and operate those routes. So how that's going to figure in this group that I'm part of, I don't know at this point. But what I got out of it is that we have, I think, quite a bit to gain from contributing to that effort. Now, 90% of the transit is funded by grants. In entirety, we're talking about the 10% difference that they're looking at getting contributions from each of the cities. Some of the cities have no dog in the fight. Niceville, for example, has no reason to participate, and other areas do. So what it's going to come down to is we have to figure out what our cost benefit of it is, and if we want to participate in it in the budget process. But I think we probably want to, from my own perspective, but we're just now getting some of the details out of the county that would enable us to make I think, a good decision on that. But it looks like a good thing for the city of Destin. And I'll be glad to provide, I've got a lot more information here, but I'll pass that out to you separately. Thank you.
Mr. Foreman, I had a question regarding that.
Okay.
Did you say they already rewarded a $2.6 million contract before they even asked for city input?
This is not a committee.
Speaker.
This is a county operation. I'm sorry. This is basically a county operation, even
Right.
though we're sitting at the table.
I thought the purpose of the co-op was to get city involvement before they...
No, this is much like the Tourist Development Council.
So they
It's
voted
run
on it.
by the county.
So they set the thing, then said, oh, by the way, come to the table?
Well, what they want is basically operational input, you know, as to where we want to put the buses, where we want the
Stops, they'll
places.
take input on the stops?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, that sort of thing. And this may develop into something different as we get into it. This was a brainstorming session more than anything else, because it wasn't formally run by any chairman or anybody else. It was basically, as you could see by the minutes, it was basically everybody saying what they thought on it and gaining out of it what we thought we wanted. But what I suggest we do, obviously, my own opinion is we want to pursue it and see what we can do, and then I'll bring that information back and bring it to the council, and then we can take from that. But Destin has much to benefit by a transportation route. For example, the paratransit, those people in town who don't have any other transportation to get to a medical appointment, to a hospital, something like that, they're provided free transportation to those appointments. And without the fixed routes, which are the places you stop at and get on the trams and all like that, they can't afford to pay for the paratransits. So it figures in the calculation of how it's budgeted. But I think it's a good thing, and I'll bring you more information as I get it. But it was a very informative meeting for me, because I knew almost nothing about what they do until this meeting.
We're glad you're there. Ms. Trammell had a question too. Ms. Trammell?
Yeah, Mr. Foreman, this is really just a comment I guess you can make. When Niceville says they don't really have a dog in this hunt, I think we can turn around and say, yes, you do. Because one of the things very, very quickly that I can bring up is the bookmobile no longer operates. So every assisted living nursing home facility needs a way to get those people to the libraries.
Exactly.
So that involves every town, because the bookmobile didn't just go to the outlying areas, it went to all of those facilities as well.
I may have said that wrong. I didn't really mean that they didn't have a dog in the fight. It's just that they couldn't figure out how to arrange stops to do it. And without the fixed stops, they can't very well pay for the paratransit.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, and close to those facilities would help, too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, just a thought.
To be determined.
Thank you, Mr. Trammell. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Next up, Mr. Marler.
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Wood, a.k.a. Bama, tonight.
All right, just a quick report. Most of you know we did a request for Calhoun sidewalks and some underground utilities under a program called TAP, the TPO. We were scored number 2 at one of our recent TPO meetings. I think we're going to find out probably around the 1st of July where that TAP funds are going to go. We're still waiting on Florida, Alabama TPO and the Bay County TPO to do their lists. So we're second in our TPO. We get 2 other TPOs plus 16, 17 total counties in District 3 to figure out where that TAP fund is. It's about $3 million-ish in total dollars. We asked for about a third of that. So wait out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Appreciate that. Ms. Trammell?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Trammell. The only thing I had is a couple things. I did see, Ms. Ramswell, you were added to another state board, I think, in the last couple weeks. So congratulations on that. Again, representing the city well. Appreciate that, your leadership in that. Then also, just so you all know, based on y'all's vote, you gave me about, I guess, 2 meetings ago regarding the issue on open container. I've been talking to a couple county commissioners, and I'll be at the meeting tomorrow representing the city. In case I'm called upon to say anything, I'll just be relaying y'all's vote. So just making sure that y'all were aware of that. I'm just going to only relay exactly what y'all approved last time. So no change. That's tomorrow morning. So, tomorrow morning? Bishop Braden, thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. And that's it. So thank you so much for that opportunity. And next up, staff reports and recommendations. First up, Mr. Miller.
As you've received the report, effective July 1, I'm going to return to practice at my old location at 415 Mountain Drive, where I've had an office for 25 years and have been associated for the last 6 with Pleat, Perry, and Ritchie. It is convenient presently for me to separate my practice back to there. And we continue to have a wonderful relationship with those fine folks that I've been working with for the last several years. And we'll continue to exchange referrals of clients and work together on matters where we can assist each other. I've asked, as has the firm, that the contract for the municipal services be assigned to my new firm, which I've incorporated. And I've circulated a motion for you tonight. Pleat, Perry, and Ritchie will continue to do the work on the pending litigation matter relating to the insurance claim. And, you know, perhaps as well be involved in matters for us in the future as time goes by. And thank you, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. We'll appreciate your action on the recommended motion.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that. First up, Ms. Trammell.
Thank you. I'll make the recommended motion. I move that the City Council approve the assignment of the agreement for municipal legal services dated September 23, 2010, between the City of Destin and Pleat, Perry, and Ritchie, PA, to J. Jerome Miller, chartered, and authorized the mayor and city clerk to execute and deliver the assignment and replacement agreement with J. Jerome Miller, chartered, for municipal legal services, and J. Jerome Miller to continue as city attorney for the City of Destin.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Ms. Ramswell, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, do you have discussion as well, or just a second?
No discussion.
Excellent. Okay, we have a first by Ms. Trammell, second by Mrs. Ramswell. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's call the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Miller?
Thank you all.
You're back on your own.
I appreciate
Congratulations.
your continued confidence, and I just have to say, for the public's advice, I suppose I'd say, you just can't imagine what an honor it is to work with a city of this caliber and quality, and to work with mayors and councils as we've had, fellow land use attorney Scott Shirley, who we work with, and this magnificent staff of the city, and the city manager, and the great job of assembling and retaining these wonderfully competent people that we all work with. This is just a privilege that no one deserves, but I'm most grateful.
Mr. Miller, we concur. Yeah, no. I think we all concur with that. Well said. Anything else, Mr. Miller? Is that it? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next up, Mr. Shirley.
Nothing other than to agree with what Mr. Miller just said. And it's a pleasure, too.
I know. How do you gotta keep it going? You try. Awesome. Next up, item number 16, finalized FDOT US 98 safety assessment report. Mr. Casella?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. What we have before you is FDOT will present to you the finalized FDOT US safety assessment report for the Highway 98 Harbor Boulevard corridor from basically Airport Road back to the Marler Bridge. So, ready?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My name is Jared Perdue. I'm currently the District Design Engineer for the Florida Department of Transportation in District 3. I was formerly the District Traffic Operations Engineer, which is all things signals, pavement markings, turn lanes, etc. So, moving into the new role, I'm here to discuss something with you that's very close to my heart because of the line of work that I do, but it also is going to hit very close to home to you. And you know, I just want to point out that this study that I'm presenting to you, the recommendations and the findings in it, are something that's very important to FDOT. Safety has been a #1 priority for the agency for a long time. The current governor, the state secretary are all strong believers in having a safe transportation system. And we place a real high emphasis on pedestrian and bicycle safety right now. We have a statewide campaign called Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow. Some of you may have heard of that. And our goals are really to basically reduce the fatalities and serious injuries on the state highway system. And, you know, obviously the major goal there is to eliminate them. You know, we don't want to see them anymore. And anytime one person is seriously injured or dies on the state highway system, it is a very big deal. And so we are working hard and focusing on reducing that to the best of our ability. And so part of that effort, again, it's a statewide effort. We have an effort that's ongoing in District 3 looking at the top pedestrian bicycle crash locations. And US 98 through the city of Destin happens to be a very unique corridor. It's mixing some odd 45,000 vehicles a day with thousands of pedestrians at certain times, and there's not a lot of alternative routes for vehicles or pedestrians to get through this area. So the unfortunate case here is that they have to mix. Pedestrians have to cross the road, vehicles have to get through on US 98, freight has to move, and so, you know, what we're trying to do is find a safe way to balance all of those different modes. And so I'm going to present here today the findings of this safety study that we did. We've been working very closely with city staff. They're very aware of it. I hope that each of you have received a copy of this study. I've had a chance to look through it. It's very thick, and there are a lot of details in there, a lot of detailed analysis, and I'm just going to kind of highlight the recommendations for you and then talk about the possible ways that we could implement some of those recommendations. And so basically the outline of my presentation today, I'm going to discuss the safety assessment report, and we're going to talk about the purpose, the limits, the corridor overview, and the recommendations. And then now that I'm the district design engineer, you know, it just so happens I'm aware that there is a resurfacing project coming up. And so we're going to talk about when that project is scheduled to go to construction and what are some of the things that can be done on a resurfacing project, because there is a very limited scope and limited funding, but it is an opportunity to address some immediate safety needs as well. So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll discuss some opportunities or programs out there or other ways to think about the bigger picture type items that could be implemented later on in the future. So just going right into the safety report, the assessment, basically the purpose, really the primary focus of the report and the study was to look at pedestrians and bicycles, but you know, it's specifically how they interact with motorists and how it affects the entire community, because again, we're looking at the context of the roadway and who all the users are, and really, you know, focusing in on making it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists when they're interacting with the vehicles on the roadway. The purpose basically was to evaluate and recommend enhancements that can be implemented within the limits of the existing corridor to increase the overall safety for the community. And I'm not going to read this slide word for word, but basically the premise is, you know, we want to create a safer environment for all users, and specifically vulnerable road users, which is something that we're focusing on, and that would be the pedestrians, the bicyclists, and maybe even the disabled, and making sure everything's accessible and everybody has a safe opportunity to get where they're trying to go. The study limits for this study, specifically, it began at the western end of US 98 through the city of Destin at the Marlar Bridge there at East Pass, and it continued east to Indian Bayou Boulevard. And we'll note later that the limits of the resurfacing project actually go to Airport Road. But this study was an independent effort of the resurfacing project, so I just don't want to confuse the two things. Corridor overview, basically what's out there now within the study limits. All of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the existing facility. It's 4-lane divided, 12-foot wide travel lanes, sidewalk on both sides of the roadway, curb and gutter section, raised median with landscaping and or grass. There were 6 signalized intersections within the study limits, and currently 4 unsignalized mid-block crosswalks. And a mid-block crosswalk is one that is marked but has uncontrolled approaches. In other words, you know, the state law, vehicles are supposed to yield or stop for pedestrians in a crosswalk, but a crosswalk that's marked out there with no regulatory devices and just warning devices is considered a mid-block, because the vehicular approaches are uncontrolled approaches, okay? One thing that was noted as part of this study and is something to be looked at long-term, and part of this existing facility is the access management that's out there. There are a lot of meeting openings, very closely spaced. Some of the meeting openings are very big, and what that does is provide an opportunity for 2 vehicles, a pedestrian and a vehicle, to cross paths. Anytime there's an opportunity for vehicles to cross paths or pedestrians to cross paths vehicles, that is an opportunity for a crash. Okay, so when we're looking at safety strategies, we want to the best of our ability, mitigate the opportunities for crashes to occur. And something you see you've seen many TPOs prioritize funds for corridor management projects, and sometimes they look specifically at access management. Access management projects are very, very controversial, as you know, because they affect access to private property owners and commercial businesses. And there's a lot of research out there that shows implementing access management restrictions actually improve safety and does not necessarily affect business revenues along a corridor. However, that is very, very, very hard to understand, because when you go out there and close median openings, there's no longer an opportunity for left turns in or out. Okay, so it's a very, very hard concept to understand, but what it does is it reduces the opportunity for crashes to occur, which in turn is a major safety improvement, and all of the residents of the local community, all of the customers, and all of the business owners are safer because of it. So just keep that in mind. The study activities, we basically, kind of have here we have a 4-step process. It started with a crash analysis. We collected, we got all the crash data out of our crash reporting system. FDOT has a crash reporting system, but we also understand the fact that local law enforcement are doing things and have records that we may not have necessarily in our reporting system. So we coordinated with Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office to make sure that we captured all of the crash data along this corridor. And turns out they had a lot of really good information for us to look at. Then the next thing we did was a road safety audit. This is a new program that was launched by FHWA, where we're going and we look at a corridor and we take a multidisciplinary approach and basically involve the local community and local stakeholders, nonprofit organizations, local law enforcement, local government staff, et cetera. We put a team together and spend an intensive 3 or so days walking the corridor, identifying the deficiencies, and talking about some of the behaviors that are happening so that we can come up with some viable recommendations. Then obviously we do a corridor analysis. We look at the vehicular traffic, vehicular volumes, pedestrian volumes, how they're interacting, and the type of routes that they're choosing to take, and then we eventually arrive at our recommendations. For this safety assessment, just the overall recommendations can be categorized as you see on this slide, where we looked at maintenance, education, awareness, and enforcement, augmentation or improvement of existing features, proposed enhancements to the corridor, which would be above and beyond what's out there now, looking at proven countermeasures and access management, and also some innovative out-of-the-box ideas. We wanted everything to be on the table here. So a lot of times engineers can get very, very rigid and narrow-minded, and we wanted to try to stay outside the box and leave everything on the table. So you're going to see some things in here that you may say, well, that'd be hard to implement. Yeah, well, we still wanted to consider it. So some of the short-term recommendations are just kind of highlighted here. It's kind of hard to read this slide, but the yellow there you see. Sorry, I was trying to use the. There it is. Okay, this yellow that you see here is just kind of highlighting some areas on the sidewalk where there is encroachment of landscaping and maybe irrigation that's spraying back on the sidewalk. And that may seem like a minor issue, but if it's causing pedestrians to actually leave the sidewalk and even step into the roadway, then it's considered a serious safety concern. And, again, landscaping is one of those things that can be kind of controversial, and maybe there's some private property owners that are maintaining it, maybe the city's maintaining it, but the observation was that there is landscaping that's encroaching on the sidewalk, and there is irrigation when it's spraying that is actually spraying water onto the sidewalk and causing pedestrians to leave the facility and even step in the roadway at times. And you couple that with the number of pedestrians out there, and it can be a pretty significant issue. So it's things like that's a short-term recommendation. Some of the other short-term recommendations before I go to midterm, we're looking at some of the ADA ramps and signage that's out there and just bringing it up to standard, because some of it's been out there a long time and there hasn't been a major construction project come through since it was installed, and so looking at bringing a lot of those things up to standard. Some of the midterm recommendations is actually kind of getting more into the details of construction activities and replacing curb ramps and sidewalks along the corridor. obviously there were some locations that were identified that needed maintenance work, but then there's some other areas that might just need some wholesale sidewalk replacement. Looked at the mid-block crosswalks, and there are opportunities in the midterm to make those more effective, possibly install new ones in some areas where they don't exist, and maybe relocate some of the existing ones and install additional features, which I'll talk about a little bit later. There's a recommendation, this one is considered midterm, you know, to go from 6-foot sidewalk to 10-foot sidewalk in some areas. It can be a midterm recommendation, but it can also be long-term, because you're looking, in some cases, you could be having pretty significant drainage impacts or right-of-way impacts. So, you know, that's kind of one that crosses over between midterm and long-term. And then another midterm recommendation, which was noted as part of the study as being a need, was a right turn lane as you come off the Marler Bridge going into the Emerald Grand condominiums. There's a pretty significant number of right-turning vehicles there, and with the really high volumes of through traffic on 98, it's creating a real serious issue there. You couple that with the pedestrians that are using the bridge and mixing all that right there at the foot of the bridge, it just kind of, it creates a hazard. And there wasn't necessarily a lot of documented collisions with pedestrians, but there were several crashes there and some rear end crashes, and that's usually something that happens when you need a right turn lane or a left turn lane. You see rear end collisions. So some of the long-term recommendations, as I discussed briefly a little bit earlier, is access management changes, looking at directional median openings, closing some median openings, and pedestrian channelization. And again, this is something that would need to be looked at on a large-scale corridor type implementation. It's definitely long-term, very controversial, and a lot of times the effort starts with your local transportation planning organization. The widening of the roadway for bike lanes and wider sidewalks. Obviously, right now we have a curb and gutter typical section out there. It's very, very costly to start relocating the curb inlets and widening the roadway and then building wider sidewalk. You start getting into major drainage improvements and right-of-way impacts. And so it's a recommendation for consideration. It is long-term, but with a lot of the ongoing efforts, specifically with the community out there being energized for this new Complete Streets initiative, and FDOT really looking into our policy with regard to that, you know, this is something long-term that's worth looking at. Alternate pedestrian access is also something to be considered for long-term. We're, you know, in discussing that, you know, looking at pedestrian overpasses, pedestrian underpasses, extensions to like pedestrian corridors through the area, and these are typically very expensive and require a lot of forethought as with regards to where you locate them, how you're going to handle the traffic, and how they're going to be designed. So again, it's a long-term recommendation, but it's one that could be very effective in the future. Next thing I want to talk about is the upcoming resurfacing project. There are some opportunities on resurfacing projects. The coin, or the phrase that we've coined at DOT, we call them 3R. That basically stands for resurfacing, restoring, and rehabilitating the roadway. And so the scope is limited to that, and the funds that are programmed are limited to that scope of work. And so this current 3R project is scheduled right now to let to construction in fiscal year 2018. And we're currently going through the procurement for the design contract right now, so we'll be kicking off the design in the fall of this year. So it's really exciting. It's an opportunity to look at some near-term improvements that are needed, and also work with city staff on some of the ideas that they may have with regard to the typical section going through the city of Destin. I know we've had several meetings about that, and we're looking forward to that conversation. One thing to note, currently there's not a right-of-way phase programmed for this. Again, it's basically the intent is to resurface the asphalt structure out there, and so we don't need a right-of-way phase for that. It's a curb and gutter section, but if there is a need identified for safety improvements and it's data-driven and the need is considered to be critical, there could be an opportunity to construct those improvements and maybe look at adding a right-of-way phase, but it does affect the project schedule. Just to get to the nuts and bolts of it, I'm going to just talk about some of the recommendations from the safety assessment that can be considered in the resurfacing project. One thing that was identified is the need for 4 signalized pedestrian crossings. That is actually called out in the safety assessment. It's one of the findings, and it definitely helps to address an immediate need, which is safely getting pedestrians across US 98. And you know, just with just the sheer number of pedestrians that are out there on a weekly basis, especially during tourist season, it's very critical that we get them across the road safely. And I know the report, and some of the people that were on the safety audit team, they noted that it was, at times, the way they described it, it was just chaos, people trying to run across the road and find gaps in traffic. And so signalized pedestrian crossings, what that does is it basically constructs a regulatory device that would actually stop traffic for pedestrians to cross the roadway. Now, some of the things you have to look at with that is where they're located. They need to be strategically located, because if they're not in places where people are willing to walk to get across the road, they won't use them. That's the bottom line. Another thing you got to look at is channelization. You know, if you have them just spaced so many feet apart and somebody has to walk 500-600 feet to get to one, a lot of times if they have a gap in traffic, they may choose just to dart across the road. And so within the constraints that we have, we like to look at channelizing pedestrians to those safe crossing locations. The right turn lane into the condominiums there coming off of the Marler Bridge is something that can be considered as part of the resurfacing project. A lot of times the need for turn lanes is identified, and that is one thing that is eligible under our resurfacing program to construct needed operational improvements. And operational improvements and safety improvements sometimes overlap. Sometimes an improvement will qualify in both of those areas. And so that's something that could be done on this resurfacing project. Median enhancements, and when I say median enhancements, don't get too scared about that. I'm not talking about changing or modifying access on the resurfacing project. I'm talking about enhancing the median to better channelize the movements that are already taking place. That could include maybe making some of the median opening smaller, and possibly just providing channelization for some of the left turns so that we don't have multiple vehicles stacking all in the middle of the median at the same time. Another thing that's eligible on the resurfacing project is no turn on red signs. I think there were several locations identified as part of this study where the pedestrian traffic would actually benefit from a no turn on red prohibition. That's something we can look at. It's a very simple signage upgrade at intersections. Obviously, ADA improvements, that's one thing that we look at just as a standard. When we do a resurfacing project, we have to make it to the best of our ability compliant with ADA standards. And so we're going to be looking at that intensively as part of the design. And then also relocating and improving some of the signage along the corridor. The next few slides are just going to be aerials of some of these recommendations that can be done in the 3R project. And there's currently, one of the things that stands out on this slide is that warning sign right there with the beacons on it that's currently on a structure. I know I've heard some mixed reviews about whether people would prefer for that to be relocated or not. It's just something that can be done. There's definitely pedestrian activity before you get to that sign, but there's a lot of pedestrian activity after you get to it. One thing that we can do is upgrade the type of sign that's on it, whether we relocate it or not. And there is a standard sign now that we can install that actually states what the Florida state law is with regards to pedestrians, and that's that vehicles have to yield or stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk. So it's more of a you're not according to federal guidelines, you're not allowed to place that sign at a crosswalk location, but as a general information or warning sign, you could use that. So And that's something we really struggle with, is educating motorists that they actually have to yield or stop for pedestrians, because believe it or not, the majority of motorists do not know that, and you just see them, they just blaze a trail and drive through the crosswalk and don't even think twice about it. And just on a personal note, on a 4-lane divided facility, that's one thing that always concerns me, is maybe a vehicle on the inside lane decides that they want to stop and obey the law, and the outside lane just blows through there, or vice versa, and a pedestrian's walking and thinks it's safe, and there's still a car coming in the other lane. So, it's a real challenge, and so we have to look at those type of things. There's a few of these images, but basically the next few slides are going to kind of show where the 4 recommended signalized crossing locations are. I think 3 of them are probably very close to or in the vicinity of existing mid-block crossings, and then one of them is new, and I believe that's going to be over near the Big Kahuna's Water Park, which is one thing we noticed. There are a significant number of pedestrians crossing there, and there's no pedestrian facilities to cross the road. And we actually have pictures, I believe they might be in the study, of a mother standing in the median with 3 children and cars just blazing by. So, obviously that's an area of concern, but you can kind of see this is just a schematic of what the design would look like. Basically, you would enhance the median there and provide like a raised refuge for the pedestrians, and you would have stop bars, and the intent there would be that there would actually be a full traffic signal at those locations to service the pedestrians. So it would have a red, a yellow, and a green bulb, and the pedestrian would push the button, the light would turn red. The pedestrian would get a walk symbol and cross, and then the light you would get a green light. So it's something that would really enhance those crosswalk locations. Here's another one. This one's close to Melvin Street. This is just highlighting the no turn on red sign. We had several of those locations. Here's the one at Big Kahuna's. This is an area where, like I mentioned, we noted that there were just people, a lot of pedestrians crossing and getting stuck in this median, just standing there waiting for a gap in traffic. So this would be a new location. And then here's one. This is kind of an interesting recommendation. This is something that's eligible in the 3R project. It's more than just a signalized crosswalk, which there's already a mid-block crossing in the vicinity here. You can see it near this median opening. And there's something really unique going on here because of the Chick-fil-A on the north side of the roadway. There is a very, very high volume of U-turns in this median opening, and it is in direct conflict with the pedestrian crossing. So it's kind of unique. And the recommendation here was to actually create a channelized left turn movement with a turn lane to actually get that U-turn movement away from the pedestrian conflict, and then also coupled with that would be to signalize the mid-block crossing. Just talking about implementing some of the remaining recommendations. These are just 3 bullets that are up here just as ideas, but there's a lot of programs out there, a lot of application-based programs and funding that's available through FDOT and the local transportation planning organizations where more of your long-term, big-picture type recommendations can be implemented. And that's really where it starts, at the planning organization, having a really strong bicycle pedestrian advocacy and looking at the future, at the current and future needs of a corridor. And so with that, I will be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Perdue. I appreciate that. We do have a few people who do have some questions. Hope that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. First up is Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a lot of talk about mid-block crosswalks, where a mid-block is. Can you tell us where a mid-block would be?
Okay, sure. That's an excellent question. And basically, I touched on this a little bit earlier. A mid-block crossing is a marked crosswalk on the roadway that has uncontrolled approaches, uncontrolled vehicular approaches. So, in other words, there's no regulatory devices to stop vehicles when a pedestrian steps out in the crosswalk. And so those can be located any number of places, but But ideally, you want them to be in the best location to avoid conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians. I mean, you look at a median opening, there are a lot of conflicting movements in a median opening. So you don't want a mid-block crossing going straight through a median opening. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that every intersection is, by statute, a place where pedestrians can cross the road. Okay? If you go mark a crosswalk at an intersection and it has uncontrolled approaches, it's still considered a mid-block crossing because the approaches are uncontrolled. So basically, when we say mid-block crossing, we're just talking about the pavement markings and the signs out there that say, hey, this is a pedestrian crossing and the approaches are uncontrolled.
So it doesn't matter if it is 2 feet from where a side street comes in, or it's 300 feet from that street, it's still considered a mid-block.
That's exactly right. That's the engineering definition, is a pedestrian crossing with uncontrolled approaches.
Thanks. And another thing, our city parking lot on Martyr Street, I know we've been discussing that a couple years now, and we talked about putting a stoplight there, and I'd asked several months ago about that, and I was told FDOT was making, I guess, this study, but it never mentions anything about Martyr Street in here, in our parking lot. Is that something that may be added to the design that's scheduled for the fall?
That's actually an excellent question, and in an effort to be very good partners with our local government agency and city staff, we know and are very familiar with their ongoing efforts there at Marler Street. Let's just say that there is a need to get pedestrians across the road there, and we want to, you know, we don't want to overlap an effort with what the city is already doing, and so, you know, we're just looking at working with city staff and waiting to see what's going to happen with the city's intentions there, and you know, if nothing comes to fruition on the city's end, then the department will look at that location, because it was identified that there's a need there. It was. So did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank
okay,
you.
Good.
And you talked earlier about adding some 6-foot or 8-foot wide sidewalks down through there. I guess the problem we have with that is we don't have right-of-way through there. We got about a 4-foot sidewalk, and that's it. So I don't know what we're gonna do with regards to that, but some of 98 down around Big Kahuna's and area, we have a wider right-of-way there, but on the other end of town, there's not.
You've got a 100-foot right-of-way pretty well up and down the corridor. You could add sidewalk throughout there. I think that's what they're saying. Look at the possibility of adding sidewalk where you had the right-of-way.
Yes, sir, that's an excellent point, and you know, that is something to be considered where it will fit within the right-of-way. So
we talk about like at AJ's in the Stallman area, whether you're talking about we have to do away with some of the roadway or some of the medians to get a sidewalk in there, because those buildings are built right on the sidewalk. It's 4 foot from the highway. So where would that sidewalk be? I mean, where would that 8-foot sidewalk be?
well, when you start looking at having a constrained right-of-way with buildings real close to the facility and really just not a lot of room to work, and you have drainage and all that, it really starts leaving the scope of a resurfacing project. And so, you know, there still could be opportunities. It just may be more of a long-term situation as opposed to near or midterm, like on a resurfacing project. So, and we'll be working very closely with the city, and we've already had several meetings with them about the things that they're looking at through the city limits as part of this resurfacing project and opportunities there, and we'll be looking to receive some recommendations as far as the things they want to look at. So,
okay, thank you so much. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Marler?
Thank you, Mayor. One thing I didn't see on the short term, which I thought we discussed at one time with you and with your representatives, was lowering the speed limit from 35 to 25, because I think the Sheriff's Department can tell you if you go in 35, they're actually going 45. We go to 25, we'd get them down to 35, because that's one of the main problems, because with the exception of myself and I'm sure certain others, I don't exceed the speed limit. I will go to 35 and they pass me like I'm standing still and give me a few fingers and a few other things too. But that's one of the things that I think would also enhance the safety, and that's number one. Number two, where you show this on this picture here, right at the foot of the bridge, making the right-hand turn lane, when the developer built that, built the complex, he was told specifically that they weren't going to put a turn lane there, and that's why that was the way he designed that entrance to that area right there, because it had something to do with access to the bridge catwalk and all that. So that's because that is a great area to put one, but it's not the way it would be a lot of redesigning to do it there. I was thinking more along the lines that y'all were coming up to the Stallman stoplight and try to acquire the right of way in that area there and make the turn lane there instead of putting it way back here by the bridge, because I don't think that's going to work, though, not the way that their entrance is designed and not the way that you've got the bridge designed. And then lastly, you were talking about, well, actually two things. You were talking about the resurfacing to Airport Road. Is that going to fix our problems in front of Kahuna's and all those areas where our little potholes seem to turn up? Are they going to finally engineer that right, or do you know that? And then the last thing, we were talking about the mid crossings. Fort Walton has installed one. Over on Main in their area of Highway 98, there around the Temple Mountain Museum. I saw it in action the other day, and it seemed to work. Traffic did stop, like they were supposed to, surprisingly enough. But that's because you got a stoplight and a stoplight in between the two. That you have to go 25 miles an hour in that area of the city of Fort Walton. So that's one of the reasons I was asking about the 25 speed limit, because right there through the city of right there in the city of Fort Walton coming off Brooks Bridge, it is 25 miles an hour, and it seems to work.
Excellent points. I'll respond to a few of those. With regards to what was done in the city of Fort Walton, that is an excellent example of a small-scale complete streets type initiative. I believe it was referred to as like a streetscape project, and it kind of ties into speed limits, but there is a mid-block crossing there, and the improvements that were constructed by the city and permitted by DOT actually help slow traffic down because of the way it feels when you drive through it. And that plays into speed limits, and I just kind of want to highlight this. Research has shown time and time again, posted speed limits do not control the speed that motorists drive. 85% of motorists drive the speed that they're comfortable driving. And that is specifically related to the type of typical section you have out there. And so when you get on a roadway facility and you go to drive it, what you see and how you feel determines what speed you drive. And research has shown it time and time again, and we've done several studies within the district just to verify the research. We had a segment in another area that was posted 35, and it was noted as a speed trap. We did a speed study. 85% of motorists were driving 48 miles per hour in a 35 zone. Law enforcement was out there every single day. We raised the posted speed limit to 45. Okay, we had a lot of pushback from that. People didn't understand. They said, now all those people that are driving 48 are going to drive 58. Well, we went out 3 or 4 months later after traffic had a chance to normalize. The 85th percentile was exactly the same, 48 miles per hour, because that's the speed that people felt comfortable driving. And so when we're looking, and this is where we're going to discuss opportunities, when we're looking at a corridor that's going through a city like Destin, and you have the Harbor District, and you're trying to promote slower traffic and the mixing of the different modes, it makes a huge difference how people feel when they're driving the corridor. And so, that's a discussion we need to have. We've already talked to city staff about that, to come to the department and just let us know what are some of the things you're looking for in a typical section, so that we can be thinking about some of the things that we can consider that still meet our standards and safety criteria. So,
well, the other thing is like on Highway 98 going into Fort Walton on Okaloosa Island, they did reduce the speed limit from 55 to 45, and then it drops to 35 around the Ramada Inn all the way until you get to the bridge, and then over the bridge is 25. And I noticed they did that, and it does seem to work. Some people do still go over the 35, but they find out real quick because the blue lights do flash. And so that's why I was just wondering why that wasn't the short-term 20 for lowering the speed limit wasn't in there either. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Marler. Mr. Foreman?
Thank you for your presentation. It was excellent. I think one of the things that crosses my mind is how do you prevent fatalities in the pedestrian population? Cars are going to be cars. no matter what. You go down there and the crosswalks that where the car is supposed to yield to the pedestrian, and you're in a 4-lane, 2-lane situation, and they don't do that. The other thing I saw in Tallahassee, the neatest fence in front of the Florida State Alumni. It's a metal fence that goes down the median, and you don't cross there. Could we get one of those?
That is definitely something that the city can consider requesting. One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at channelization of that nature is the Tennessee Street through Tallahassee.
Tennessee Street.
It's a similar corridor, but it's different because there is greater spacing between median openings. And so you have an opportunity to install channelization in a very wide, already grassed median. Whereas 98 through the city of Destin, the median openings are very, very closely spaced. And so, channelization becomes very difficult when you're trying to manage existing access.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Dixon?
Yes, and I like what you said just a little bit ago about the pedestrian crossings. It's basically, if there's a sign there even, and it doesn't have to be flashing, it doesn't have to be going, lights flashing across the road, people are supposed to stop and allow traffic to go, or the pedestrians to go across. But I see about, in Destin, 3 or 4 different types of pedestrian crossings. And I think that's where we kind of get into a little bit of an issue with when you are supposed to stop. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that if it's just a sign there, that they're still supposed to stop. I think a lot of people are thinking that basically that pedestrian is just going to wait till it gets cleared and you shouldn't run over that pedestrian while they're in that crosswalk. But what it means is that any pedestrian crossing sign, people need to stop and allow pedestrians to go across. But our issue is, and I hope this helps remediate some of that, is that we do have 3 to 4 different type of signals in Destin, or crossing, pedestrian crossing. When I say signals, some are just plain signs, some are signs with lights that go across the street, some are basically there's a flashing sign on it just to let you know there is a crosswalk there. But there is different type of pedestrian crossings in Destin, and I hope whatever we do, or when we do this, we're going to make all those somewhat similar to where everybody understands and knows the rules. I am all about trying to make sure that when people come into Destin on both ways, from the east and from the west, that they know that they need to stop if there's people that are wanting to cross the highway there. So I don't know how we can do that, but I do know that is a big issue. I think people just don't understand, because I stop every time somebody's waiting to go across one of those pedestrian crossings, and every time somebody just keeps flying on by. So I think that's really more dangerous than if there was no pedestrian crossings in some cases. So that's my opinion on it. I hope we can maybe make sure that everything that we do is similar, and that we don't have 3 or 4 different types of pedestrian crossings in Destin. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, and certainly as part of the resurfacing project, we'll make sure that every crosswalk on US 98 is consistent. And now, with regards to the other crosswalks on local streets in Destin, I'll be happy to entertain any recommendations or ideas that city staff has on that. I'm not necessarily familiar with all the different features you have out there right now, but there may be some of them that meet department standards. So,
thank you, Mr. Perdue. Thanks, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Trammell?
Thank you. I, like Mr. Marlar, was looking at the picture here of the Emerald Grand and the proposed turn lane, and there was already one there in the beginning, and it caused such pedestrian concern because there were so many people trying to turn in at that point. They couldn't fill up the garage fast enough, and there were pedestrians walking there. So they block it off now, except in the mornings when we have delivery trucks and those kinds of things. They do let those down because there's very few pedestrians down there. So I'm not sure that that's going to settle the issue. My second question is, I'm in agreement that we need to move the sign to the base of the bridge about pedestrian traffic. The other issue is, as soon as you move the sign, you're going to have this big television advertising sign right beside it. So I'm not so sure it's going to get seen, because we're too busy looking at what's going on that television versus that little sign with the flashing lights across the top. So that's a concern for me. And I didn't hear in your report about narrowing the lanes. Was that part of it and we just neglected to mention it, or are we still looking at 12-foot lanes?
So the safety assessment did not specifically address the lane widths, so to speak, but there are opportunities to look at narrowing some of the lane widths through here on the typical section. And again, I've made reference several times to the fact that we've been coordinating with city staff because we're very interested to know exactly what the city's expectations are so that we can start looking at that and work with them to find a solution there. So there is an opportunity to look at lane widths that are narrower than 12 feet.
I think that also promotes slower speeds, so, and wider sidewalks. So we'd have an opportunity to help ourselves in that regard as well. Okay, thank you. Great report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trammell. Ms. Ramswell?
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. I have a couple questions, and they all sort of have to do with implementation and cost. You had mentioned that for any improvements to be included in a 3R project, that they needed to be data-driven and shown as critical. And I'm just curious as to what type of improvements would qualify to be concurrent and who actually makes those suggestions.
Okay, that is an excellent question, actually. And when I say data-driven, I'm talking about reviewing the crash history, determining exactly what is causing the issue, and then looking at the cost of the improvements to mitigate that issue. And we generate a benefit cost analysis, and we have a very rigid set of guidelines with regards to eligible safety improvements. And so we follow that process to determine which ones would potentially be eligible.
Okay, so who makes those suggestions? Does, let's say, for example, the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office with their accident reports, or us, based on observation?
So the suggestions, okay, I think I understand your question. The suggestions are actually engineering recommendations, and so they have to come from an engineering study by a professional engineer licensed in the state of Florida, and that's what this safety assessment report is. It basically looked at a holistic view of the crashes on this corridor and basically used a systematic method to determine the improvements that were needed. And we categorized them into near-term, mid-term, and long-term.
Okay. My next question is, in terms of knowing the funding and who's responsible for funding, it's my understanding that required safety improvements and stipulations that are made by state mandates are the responsibility of FDOT to hold the burden of paying for it and securing the grants and the monies. Is that correct? Are they, for all this that you're discussing, is this all FDOT's responsibility?
So there are a number of recommendations in this report, and some of them are considered safety improvement recommendations. Others are considered enhancements. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's other programs out there to construct enhancements, like the Transportation Alternatives Program, which I think Councilman Wood had mentioned a project earlier. There's programs that are administered by the TPO and prioritized by the TPO to implement enhancement type projects. Now, the safety recommendations that have been identified that yield an acceptable benefit cost and have been basically recommended by a professional engineer, yes, the department pursues implementing those within limitations. We've got the 3R project, we have scope limitations, there's always funding limitations, and there's projects, statewide, district-wide, and they have to be prioritized, and we have to look at the funding. But yes, the department would pursue funding the immediate safety needs.
Is there anything you need from us in terms of prioritizing or areas that we feel are important that perhaps you missed, or just suggestions on our part to help get you going?
Obviously, we love open communication, so any ideas or suggestions you have, please share them. I've got Noelle Warren here. She's actually going to be the design project manager for our resurfacing project, and so we're always open to your suggestions. And we will consider them. If you suggest something, we will consider it. I can promise you that. Now, with regards to implementing some of the more immediate needs, Do we need anything from the city? You know, I don't think we do, but we definitely want to maintain that dialogue, and so we don't want to go out there and do something that the city's not going to support. We want to be good partners, and so any feedback you have or any support that you can offer during this process, and especially as we design the 3R project and all, that would be greatly appreciated.
Great, well, thank you. I know we're all very excited to see some of this start being done to improve the problems we have, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take a few minutes with this. Jared, thanks for coming today. I've been waiting a long time for this final report, so I'm glad it's finally here. I'm glad to hear the signalized crossings being the different color lights. I think that's the only way to make that work. Flashing yellow lights don't get it done. And I watch a lot of pedestrians cross roadways, and they don't even push the buttons. You know, I was stopped at 98 Airport Road just a couple days ago, had bike riders coming in both directions. Both walking hands were red. They didn't even slow down and look. Luckily, nobody turned right on red and smacked one of them. Could have been real easy. I like the right-hand turn lane. Sandy, I think you misunderstood that right-hand turn lane going into Harbor Walk. It's not that first entrance. It will be all the way to the lake there.
That's not what the picture shows. That's why I'm saying.
It's the first entrance.
It's the first.
Is it? That's not what the picture shows. Yeah, that doesn't do anything.
Let me tell you, we haven't backed up before long.
Yep. That turn will be so short, they just make more folks mad, I think, if that was the case.
Well, again, that's the kind of feedback we need.
Yeah.
So,
I've got another question for you off that subject in a minute. I like the median enhancements. I know I sat through a couple of classes up at F.Olbeck on medians, and I'll guarantee you if you built that Marlar median right now, you'd never build it the way it is. It will be a whole lot smaller, and probably some other treatments there. Something I learned, I think it was called the Michigan effect, where you do the, if you're going to do U-turns, you have one U-turn going this way, one that way, and a grass median in between so the cars don't come together in the same opening. And why we don't do more of that thing around here so you don't have cars meeting. I mean, some of our medians are so big you get 3 or 4 cars in there at one time, all trying to go different directions, and nobody can move until somebody gets rear-ended. So these great big medians we have don't work very well. So some way to be able to make those, if you had one lane for one going one way and another lane for the other one going the other way, that way they wouldn't meet in the middle. It'd be a whole lot better way to do that. And I don't see much of that here in Florida. At least not so far I haven't.
It's actually kind of an innovative concept, and it's in a new initiative that FHWA is pushing for innovative type intersections. And I know John McLean with Stantec, who actually did the safety assessment. That's one of the out-of-the-side-the-box ideas he came up with, because it actually makes the corridor more efficient and it eliminates the left turn conflicts.
Right, right.
But again, you get into access modifications there. So.
And I do like the no right turn on red, especially Stallman, and the angle that just you're sitting there and your car and the pedestrian is right by the driver's or the passenger side of your car, almost could tap you on the hood and say, hey, watch for me, and you're looking back the other way for cars coming from the east to make sure you can turn on red. There's been so many times when folks were either hit or almost hit right there, and that one's definitely not good. Now, I guess the other one's more vision issues at, I guess, Beach and Benning. So I'm all for those things. Moving the lights, I don't know if that makes that big of a deal or not. I'm more, if you have the right kind of crosswalks with the red, green, and yellow lights, and that's a bigger issue than moving those 2 flashing lights at the beginning of the corridor. I guess I know you made the comment about speed, and I agree that people will drive the speed they're comfortable at based on whatever picture you put out in front of them. So I know we've talked about trying to slow the traffic down, and Sandy brought up doing the road diets. I have no issues doing road diets. I mean, if we could find somebody to narrow those lanes, that might give us more room to do something else, whether it's, I guess I'm not a big proponent of bike lanes on 98, unless you're a high-speed rider, you probably don't want to be riding along that traffic anyway. But if there's some other things we could do there to widen the sidewalks, that would be something that I'd be in favor of. I'm going to switch over to the actual agenda item I had here. What is a super street? What does that mean?
John. would you like to weigh in on that? A super street, what is a super street? Come up to the mic.
Yeah, come on up here. I saw that thing too, Mr. Wood. I wasn't sure what that meant, so.
Basically, a super street is a very new idea. It's actually been incorporated in North Carolina and Texas at the moment that we know of. Stantec has actually designed two. One is in implementation outside in a little town called Cary. It's handling over 56,000 cars at the moment. What it is, it's actually a controlled access. When you have side streets coming up, the side streets cannot make a through movement. They can't make a left turn movement. The only thing they can make is a right turn movement.
Okay.
And what it does is it takes them down to an offset signal that allows them to do a signalized U-turn. So it actually decreases the delay for traffic to make that turn instead of having to sit through 3 to 5 minutes of a signal time.
Wouldn't that just cause more conflicts on 98 with more cars doing U-turns?
Because they're signalized, they're actually
Okay.
controlled by signals, so it
Okay,
actually
all right.
reduces those conflicts. It takes
Okay.
this key thing about them is it takes your conflicts that you're having and it spreads them out. And by spreading those conflicts out, you're not confined to one area. So by spreading out, it actually reduces the overall time a conflict takes. There are some super streets where actually, the one in North Carolina actually does allow a left turn, but it does not allow a through movement. So there's actually a couple different scenarios that super streets kind of incorporates.
That's another innovative approach to basically eliminate conflicts. You know, we talk about conflicts. There are a lot of conflicts, even at a standard signalized intersection. So pedestrians have to be aware of traffic coming from multiple directions.
Right, yeah, that's something I'm noticing more and more as I look at crosswalks through the corridor there, that especially the mid-block ones are the problems, where I will see a pedestrian standing in the vicinity of one side of the crosswalk. They got their back to the crosswalk, they got their phone in their hand, doing whatever they're doing. As a driver, I have no idea if their intent is to cross or not. So I'm looking at that person thinking, okay, I'm fixing to stop. Now I go to the rearview mirror, got a guy on my tail. He's 3 feet away. If I stop, it's either the pedestrian, the back of my vehicle, or something else that's going to get hit. So there's got to be some way, we need to do something locally here to educate our pedestrians. If you're going to cross a road, do something common to crossing the road, like watching traffic. If you get your back to traffic, playing with your phone, as a driver, I have no idea what you're trying to do. And I've got to make a split-second decision to do something, and if I've got my family in the truck, I'm stuck. I'm going to try not to hit that pedestrian, but I'm going to save my family. So.
Distracted walking is just as dangerous as distracted driving.
Bingo,
so.
thank you. Now, maybe this is a question for Captain Pecco. Is there a jaywalking law in Florida? I think I asked you that before, and there is. You know, we're going to be building crosswalks. I got no problem with this, mainly for folks who right now won't use them. So enticing those folks who right now don't use them to walk to a crosswalk that you can push a button, get a red light to stop traffic so you can cross safely. I'm not sure how we do that.
Nice fence.
May take more than that. Some concertina wire, razor wire, or something to keep them in there. So well, you know, it's critically important that we synchronize a lot of this with that resurfacing project.
Yes.
And if we miss out on that, we're going to miss out on a huge opportunity. So, you know, as this is a state highway, it's still my main street in Destin. So, you know, I don't have control. I come to you. Help me out. So, you know, as many things as we get incorporated into that resurfacing project, especially those crosswalks with the signals, we got to do that. So, I mean, whatever you need from us, you keep beating on us, and we'll try from the, I don't know what, you know, we talk about the TPO. Most of our TPO priority list usually are more capacity projects. We do have some other smaller priority lists, but I'm sitting there thinking if I made a safety list from every community in the county who wanted a bunch of little things done, that list would be 5 miles long, and I'd never be able to fund it. I mean, it's bad enough now trying to fund what we do, and our TPO has the biggest difference in our long-range plan and our need statement, which is the stuff we want, and the cost feasible, which is what we can afford to pay for. One is $6.2 billion, and one is $265 million. So we are 97.5% unfunded out through 2035.
It's the biggest delta in the state right now. So,
One-
it's tough to do.
It is, and one thing that I've seen done just over the years successfully at some of the TPOs is to do corridor management projects. And they do a corridor management study, they prioritize it, and it competes with all the other capacity projects. And
Yeah,
I believe there might be some on the Okaloosa
And
Walton.
we do have on our table too, we have a corridor study box and about $1.6 million in the project box.
Right.
As things are located through those corridor studies.
And those studies are driven locally, I mean,
Right.
as far as the scope and what you're looking at, so they can address things like turn lanes.
Right.
Or access, or pedestrian channelization, things like that, so.
Okay. Let me change my question off the subject as I get you standing here real quick. Danny Werfel Way, coming over the Mid-Bay Bridge.
Yes.
Going south. As you come across the bridge, right now there's one lane initially, then it opens up to 2 lanes.
Yes.
I've heard a rumor that you're going to extend that one lane a little bit further so that the folks coming out of the Lulu's or the middle school, which is a better answer, are safe coming out of there. Can you confirm or deny that?
That is just a rumor. What I can tell you is we have had a request to look at it, and I believe before I left traffic operations, I believe we had commissioned one of our consultants to study it, and that is the status that I know. So we did get a request there, and anytime we get a request, we go look at it.
Gotcha. Is that called a push button project?
That
Or
is
separate.
That is what leads to push button projects potentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
We basically, it's customer service and traffic operations. If somebody has an issue or complaint, they give us a call, we will go look at it. We will give consideration to whatever their issue is.
Okay. And in close, I'd just like to thank you and all the folks at FDOT Secretary Barfield. I know in my dealings over the last 4 years, the emphasis on pedestrian and bicycle safety has definitely gone up greatly, in fact, across the entire state. There are lots of places in Florida that have much worse issues than we have. We've had about, 10 or so fatalities in the last 10 years. South Florida's had 1,555 in the same time period, so it ain't even close. But, as we find things we can do, and of course funding is always the issue, but I think it's clear now that pedestrian and bicycle safety, that emphasis is increased greatly. I'm glad to see that because when you do some of the safety enhancements for them, it also impacts driver safety. So it all goes together. So I appreciate y'all's efforts. And John, on doing the study, thank you very much. You guys did a yeoman's job. I look forward to actually seeing some projects on the ground and making all of our folks safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I had a couple of quick questions, then I'll kick it back to Mr. Casella. Then we're going to have to take just a quick break for them to change the videotape. In light of some things Mr. Wood kind of hit on, and also kind of piggybacking a question Ms. Ramswell asked with regard to the resurfacing, and I know it's data-driven and there's a formula and all that kind of good stuff. I mean, obviously, you put this report together for us, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so you got the recommendations that you are making that come with the 4 crosswalks and all the other stuff added. So is it safe to assume at least the ones you put in here would be done under the resurface project, since you're making the recommendation?
So the ones that have been identified as a need that is near term, that would be eligible under the resurfacing project, we obviously would look to pursue funding to get some of those things done, but we're not going to do it in a vacuum. That's why I'm here, because we want feedback from the city. What are you looking at? What are your long-term goals? What are your near-term goals? And we want to make sure that we have a partnership as we move forward.
Okay, and I agree with that completely. So if Mr. Casella gets with you and says, hey, yeah, we'll take every one of them, there's a probably high likelihood we'll get them done.
We will pursue it, yes.
Very nicely responded. Mr. Casella, then I know Mr. Wood, you had a light up too.
Yeah, let me, because I think this is the building block, and one of the reasons we scheduled DOT in June. In July, Keenan and Associates is coming back to you on the week of July 20th, and they're going to be talking about the visualization study and so forth. And one of those components is is transportation and what the corridor is going to look like. And although they're looking a little bit longer term, some of their ideas may be short term. So I think what we need to keep in mind as we do the building blocks and drive some recommendations or some ideas to FDOT as part of the resurfacing project is exactly what improvements we want. But I would encourage you to wait to let Keenan and Associates give you some of their ideas. That's when they were here the last weekend or the late May. One of the things they asked all of the different stakeholders was, from a preference standpoint, what things they wanted to see Destin look like. And that's important because I know they've been studying the corridor specifically from Main Street back to the Marler Bridge about what they want that 100-foot to be, if they want to reduce it down to 11-foot travel lanes and wider sidewalks on the south side and all those things that Mr. Braden said. There's a sufficient right-of-way to do that. You have to do things a little differently, and some of them much more expensive than others. Clearly, how do you get the pedestrians across Highway 98? Do you do that at grade, which is being recommended here or suggested here? Do you do an overpass of some sort or an underpass? All of those are very feasible. All of them have different price tags. So my question for DOT is, when would be the last point for you to take so you can incorporate it into your scope of services for the resurfacing? Would that be September, October, November of this year? If we said to you, we want A, B, C, D for you to consider and improve.
So, the important thing is that we need to be having the conversation as soon as possible, because we are about to execute a design contract. We're going to be designing, and we have a project schedule. And, we definitely want the project to stay on schedule and let when it's scheduled to let. So, I'd say, we need to be having the conversation as soon as possible, because, I don't want to mislead or have any false expectations. I mean, there are limitations to what we can do on a 3R project, but there are things that we can do. Mm-hmm. And so we really need to know as soon as possible what the city is looking at so that we can have the dialogue, because we're going to have to look at it and meet and talk and kind of work out the different things that you're looking at. So
if we told you by the end of September, would that work? No?
We should be okay if we get by the end of September. We should be okay. Don't you think, Noel?